All right, well, welcome to this July 12th meeting of the Milton Planning Board. I'm Alex Whiteside, the chairman. And why don't the people sitting at the table introduce themselves?
Bernie Lynch, member.
Emily Ennis, member.
Ed Duffy, member.
Michael Kelly, member.
Jean Peterson, clerk.
Mr. Clark is going to be with us shortly. So we're going to meet again on July 24th. And then we're going to meet in early August, on August 9th.
July 24th, right? That was the 26th.
26th. You know, there's a problem with that, Alice. The problem is...
Okay, we're changing it to some other date.
No, Jean, on the agenda, on the next meeting, I think she has the 24th by mistake.
Yeah.
And it's the 26th, and then the other subsequent document. 2 weeks
26th.
from tonight is the 26th.
So let's meet on the 26th.
I'd rather I could go somewhere else if I have another invite, but I think it's just an error on the Jean. On the first, do you see
Bill
it
did
there?
the agenda, I did the minutes, I can see
Okay.
the difference.
Okay, so we're going to change that, and
It's supposed to be the 26th.
the meetings are, you got it right. And-
Okay, it's 26th. The first
Okay.
agenda had it wrong.
Now, on the meetings, I've made rather extensive suggested changes, and my suggestion
Is
you
that we
can,
table?
is that we, Jean, you redo them, and we'll, and send them out again, because people can,
They are fairly extensive.
there are a
yes.
lot of changes.
I'll send that to Jean, please.
Okay, then we have to go look at them again then, after that.
Yep.
Okay. I wouldn't bother checking mine then.
Okay. Now, and Mr. Lynch,
Yes.
you're going to give Jean a copy of your disclosure statement to file with those minutes.
Which I disclosed in 9/21/10, 2010.
Okay, this just has to do with the fact that you've done inspections for the applicant, Conley Construction at times.
And
The applicant is Conley Construction.
Yes, in the Mass General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 23B3 says if a person makes a disclosure, public disclosure as to what he, I make this disclosure for such and such, then the public,
Right.
it protects a person that, like in my situation, where it could be.
And it protects the public interest.
Yes.
There's no actual conflict, and this is just a disclosure to so that people know that we're all on the up and up. So why don't we
Pass that down?
pass that down and include it with the,
We got that
With
from
the
the town
minutes.
clerk today, Jean, the town clerk.
and Mr. Clark is here just in time to, unless, well, we're going to see if any citizens want to speak. There being only one citizen here.
He's a biggie too, maybe he might come up and
You
say
want to,
something.
you want to
Oh,
say
he took his
it?
hat off, he took his hat off.
All right. There are, citizen speak is going to not occur this meeting because no citizens. Now, Mr. Clark, we have been waiting 2 weeks for your report and look forward to about 10 good minutes unless
Oh, I'd say we have plenty of time for his report.
we could also, we could lapse into master planning.
We absolutely could, because we have updates on master plans.
All right, so
But I'll defer to Bill for this
if
one.
you take 10 minutes, that's okay. If you don't, that's okay too.
I'm not going to take 10 minutes, but looking at your agenda for tonight and your agenda in 2 weeks, for as much as you thought your agenda at the last meeting was going to be very full, there are a few things that have happened. Your 6:45
Yeah,
has requested a continuance
really.
Until the 26th.
And the 645 is the open space development.
Excuse me. off of Hillside Street. That's the
Hayfield.
open space development that, requesting 3 houses on 15 acres.
Right.
The
And use
Henry's-
of the existing driveway to access them.
Can we make that clear for that gentleman who just walked in?
I think I heard the
You
message.
get a
got the,
I'm
you
gonna
got
let-
the
I'm gonna
gist
let-
of what was
I'm
happening.
gonna let their lawyer take and deal with that
Oh.
at 6:45.
Oh, well, okay, their
but I'm
lawyer
giving you-
is here.
Right, I know.
But yeah,
Um,
it's scheduled for 6:45, so some people may be running late.
Under
Right.
new business, the potential historic preservation PUD requested by Mr. Sullivan has been withdrawn until a later time.
The requested assisted living,
No,
No,
historic
he
preservation.
wanted,
oh, the historic preservation PUD.
like, a week and a half ago, he asked me to put on here a potential historic preservation PUD that he was looking into, and he wanted to come to the board and have a discussion. He
Oh,
called me
okay.
2 days ago and said, no, he ran into a vernal pool. He now has to change his plan.
I saw those salamanders out there, they're all over the place.
I don't even know where he's talking about, so, okay.
I'm only kidding.
I know. Mr. Sullivan will be in, so if you have questions, you can ask him yourself. He'll be in a little while to discuss the 86 Walcott project before you. I know that the principals for the assisted living for 703 Randolph Ave will be in to have a discussion with you. I've been dealing with things with the master plan, dealing with the wind turbine. Actually, the wind turbine goes to arbitration Monday, so we've got 2 weeks of hearings for it. So I've been a little busy with the logistics of that. Trying to finish up the Green Communities grant. And the paperwork to get you into the next meeting. You've got 2 scenic driveway hearings. One of them is a simple, it's a paving apron. There are no walls, just a paving apron. That should take you less than 5 minutes.
What street?
That's on the corner of Brush Hill and Bradley. And the apron will be on Bradley through the existing hole in the wall.
We had a sidewalk there, didn't we? Just,
No, we had it next door. It's up the next house up closer to Brush Hill. Yes, but we were in the same vicinity. No trees, no
Okay.
wall that comes under your jurisdiction, just paving under the scenic road application. The other will be 35 Hillside Street. Notices haven't gone out, but it is in the paper. The 35 Hillside Street will rebuild the existing stone wall, which right now is very low. They want to bring it up a little higher. They want to clear out some of the trees that are in the back and want to replant, take out some of the Norway maples and put in more native species. So they'll have to fill a little bit in the back. The issue there is the setback. The road's right-of-way it's a 60-foot right-of-way,
Wow.
so it really bites into their front lawn. The wall,
Hillside Street's a 60-foot right-of-way?
uh-huh.
That was the road to Plymouth, wasn't it?
It could mean that,
That's a significant.
don't step off your porch, because
It's a
you
county layout.
may lose your,
I mean, on town land.
you could be. I didn't check yours.
It's a
Don't
county
cut those
layout.
bushes without telling us.
I guess they're protected.
We need a permit from the town to cut them.
It's a hedge, so I'm not sure that I could get Branch Lane out there to
Branch was
advise.
down there, Branch has been all over. That 35 Hillside will be a joint public hearing with Branch, because there are some trees that have been requested to be taken down. Between that paperwork,
What they might do is put ribbons around the trees so that people passing by can see which trees are suggested.
it's a good idea.
I might pass by there.
They're already on the trees.
Okay, good.
The ones that are staying have the ribbons, everything else would come out.
The ones that are
The ones that are staying
staying
have the ribbons, everything else will come out. We've already done that.
You'd have been confused otherwise.
We already did the
Tell the
ribbons.
cutters that, though.
Yeah, really.
The cutters might be confused by that.
The cutters are the ones who put the ribbons on the trees.
Well, so hopefully they remember which one.
They
put
remember
them.
which ones, yes.
Nice.
But they're not doing it until they come to the joint hearing first.
Well, that's gratifying.
I also included in your packets the ULI report from the Hendry's project. Since it's been so long since everybody even thought about it or read it or came up with how the whole project down there even came about. I keep getting stuff about, I'm still doing the East Milton
Parking study?
well, the next step, phase 2. So I didn't want to call it a parking study at this point because it's not a study. Now it'll be implementation of the, whatever that next plan will be. Dealing with that, and
Has anyone suggested that the Granite Avenue traffic is much worse? Because whenever I go to the bank, I park on the Bryant Avenue because going over to the other side just takes far too long. And you know, I'd never go to Kennedy Carpet. I wouldn't go to these places unless, because even in midday, there are 2 or 3 traffic light cycles that you've got to wait for to get through there. And you know, there are businesses on that street.
I've seen the off-ramp getting traffic back, letting the off-ramp hazardous.
But it discourages people getting off the expressway to try to avoid the parking lot in front of them.
It does do that. But of course,
Coming from Adams Street, it's easy. We're breakthrough.
there's no wrong. I mean, since it's always crowded, since it's always full of cars, you know, discouraging, you put more cars in a spot that's full of cars already. In other words, it's got the maximum number of cars in it without traffic coming off the expressway, because traffic can't come off the expressway because there's no place for the cars to go.
Beautiful. Isn't that what?
Okay, so this is part of the plan, I gather.
yep.
Some members shook their heads when you said that.
When I said what?
And which way did they shake them?
Yes.
Isn't transportation a function of this board?
Circulation is a function of the master plan. So yes.
But I think transportation in general is a function of the planning board.
And we're going to do some master planning on this, you know.
Just like open.
Nice segue.
Excellent segue. Do you want to get the boxes out?
No,
Yes,
it's
we-
6:45.
All right, well, we can.
Not yet.
We have a minute.
We got three responses to the master plan RFP. We have, is it 15?
17.
17, and I got 2 more today. So and I don't have them on that
I
list.
think I counted one of your 2, so.
That's okay.
It must be around 18.
So we
then.
still, all right, so we have approximately,
We're going to segue right back to the master plan after we,
Let's just finish up what the 18 were, because we started to say
18
17
what?
and 18.
Citizens?
It's 18 citizens,
18
yes,
citizens
wanting
want
to be on the master
to be
plan
on the
committee.
Master plan.
And we're going to
committee.
discuss that
We can discuss that later,
In-
yes.
in great detail for the next 45 minutes.
You
After.
would like to, yes, that's fine.
After we hear from Mrs. McKettrick on the open space development off Hillside Street, which was continued from June 14th. Welcome.
I believe the board has received a letter from me asking that you continue this hearing tonight. What I have to report is that the developer is continuing to negotiate with buyers for portions of the lot. And because of the potential that that might change the nature of the application to the board, or it might change the board's view of the application, we feel it would be in everyone's best interest to wait until those negotiations either break off or are completed. That doesn't mean months and months. I mean, they're really working on it, so I would anticipate that you might ask us to come back in 2 weeks, and we would expect to do that. But that was the reason for the request for the continuance.
How does the schedule in 2 weeks look, Bill? We've got Henry's. We
Whenever.
were attempting not to put this on at the same time as Henry's, so it looks like August 8th, Bill?
That would be better anyway, because we also have to consider whether we're doing master plan interviews at our next meeting, so obviously.
August 8th, okay. It is okay for me. I will mention that I received a call from Attorney Bobrowski on Monday just to check and see if there was any new information. And I told him that I had sent the letter, so he was informed that I was requesting the continuance. And he, he has more schedule conflicts than I do, so I would ask that the board, someone contact him also.
How about you?
Because he would want to be here. I mean, if Bill Clark or somebody could do that. I can certainly do it if you want me
You
to.
could call him up and you could chat about the application and how to make it acceptable to his clients. That would be nice. This is what we did with
We've made those
Conway.
forays, and the door is open.
All right.
Both doors are open, so we're more than willing to discuss it if we think there's something that we can talk about. He indicated he was available on the 26th,
Right.
so I don't know about the following date. I know I'm available, and I suppose you could move it up again if you needed to, but I just wanted to ask that you contact him, since he's not here tonight.
All right, Bill,
Or
what do
I'll
you think?
contact him if you
The
want.
next meeting is on August 9th.
It's on August 9th, quite right. Okay, it's
That's
August
fine.
9th, not
I'll
August
put it down at
8th.
6:45 August 9th.
And that's a Thursday, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so the open space development off Hillside Street hearing is now continued till 6:45 on August 9th. And we hope that the ensuing month is a productive one.
And we do too.
Good luck.
We do too. Thank you very much.
Now, we are going to deal with the master plan in
Excellent.
excruciating detail.
Excruciating detail. Well, we have 3 things to report on the master plan. As Bill said, we had 3 responses to the RFP, and we'll pass those out shortly. What you'll be getting is the technical proposal. The price proposal you don't open until after we've looked at the technical proposal. Bill and I will be doing a technical review to make sure that the proposals have met all of the technical requirements. We ask that you read them and rank them 1 to 3, so we can choose one. The question will be whether or not you feel we should interview the applicants, and that's something we ought to discuss.
The score sheet's in the RFP, right?
The criteria are in
The
the
criteria are
RFP.
in
I had
the-
actually thought of doing up a score sheet for you if you'd like, but there are criteria
I
in the
think the
RFP.
score
that
sheet
you
is
need.
always good.
Okay, I can do that up and have it ready
Because we
to you.
can then submit our score sheets to the official scorer.
All right, so let me make a note to make up some score sheets.
And this will give the board something to do in the next few weeks.
Fair enough. While you're also scoring the RFPs, you'll have to score the 17 to 18 respondents as well. Come up with your top 5.
They
They have submitted letters and/or resumes, depending on which person it is. Bill, I don't know if you got a chance to print them all out.
I did not.
Okay, so we'll get you the packet
Okay.
of all of the people. We also already have a score sheet set up for those. So
Okay.
with precincts, because remember we wanted geographic diversity as well as experiential diversity. So what we'll do is we'll get you up one packet.
and
that
we're
has
trying
the
to
score sheet.
select
5.
five.
5 out of the 17. The Board of Selectmen were supposed to choose their representative last night. I'm waiting on the school committee, and Bill is meeting with the Milton Chamber of Commerce in what, 2 weeks, Bill? A week?
Fortunately, they canceled their meeting.
You'll have to
today.
talk to them by telephone, so.
Yep.
So we just need those as well. And the warrant committee had their first meeting of the year Wednesday, so I believe they've chosen their representative.
Now, how does
So
this
we-
process work, Emily?
What do you mean, how does this process work?
Just give us a little
Okay.
run-through of the process.
fair enough. So first of all, we're going to have the planning board choose the consultant and choose the master plan committee. Then at that point, the master plan committee will, once the board is satisfied with the consultant, the contracts are signed, all of that, and it has to go through legal. The master plan committee will meet with the consultant. We can choose whether or not the board also wants to meet with the consultant, but the idea is to not have too much of a duplicative process.
The first meeting probably should be the board, the committee, and
That could
the
work out very
consultant,
well,
just
if the
because
board would like to do that.
And I think that, what does the board think? That's probably a good idea,
One
isn't
last
it?
night we have to go.
What?
If we can do it one night, that's great.
Yeah.
We
Well, I
can
mean,
meet
the
committee
way
and-
it's set up, describe how we've set up the
Process itself? Okay, so what happens, and for anybody at home who wants to read it in more detail than I'm going to give you, tonight we have, the proposal is actually online, and there is a preliminary schedule in it, and a scope of first services that describes what we're going to do, the visioning process that describes what we want them to do, and a little short item on the master plan committee, and there's also the master plan charge, so you can see both of those documents online. Basically what's going to happen is we'll have that kickoff meeting, planning board, master plan committee, consultant. The consultant then needs to go
What
back.
do we think's going to happen at the initial meeting?
Well, generally you discuss the timeline, the schedule, give the consultant a little bit more background about the type of information that you want them to know before they start the process. Then they're going to spend about a month, month and a half looking through all of our documents. As part of that, they will be preparing for the first public visioning process. We've asked for a minimum of 3, so we'll see what the consultants respond as to how many they're willing to do. But we've asked for a minimum of 3 to be geographically dispersed. So they'll be preparing for the first public visioning process. We can talk to them about what they want to cover, but typically we'd cover a few topics at each of the 3 processes. These topics would be dependent on 81D, which is what the state says should be at a minimum in a master plan. Then the master plan committee will be working with the consultant before and after each of the public charrettes to make sure the consultant is A, on track. That's part of the master plan committee's job, is then they can report back to us. Also make sure they're getting the type of information they need, and as the consultant prepares documents for the public charrettes and the documents summarizing the public charrettes, the master plan committee will be reviewing those, again, making sure everything's on track, on target.
No, the charrette is, how would that work?
You can do it a couple of different ways, and this is one of the things, we wanted to leave it flexible in the RFP so that the consultant could work with the planning board and specifically with the master plan committee to find out how we wanted to do it. But charrettes generally start with some sort of information presentation. The consultant stands up and says, this is the project we're working on, these are the parameters of the project, we're here to try and get information from the public. And then they typically break into workshop sessions. So what you do is you break the number of people there into smaller groups, say groups of 10 or so. And each one has a facilitator or potentially 2 facilitators. And you can do mapping sessions, which is when you have a map of the town of Milton in our case, and people go through and identify the opportunities and the problems that they see in various geographic areas.
Just one question, Emily. The facilitator is the one that is really the driver. So
The facilitator isn't the driver, they're the recorder. So what they do is they'll spread out the
they'll get the
map,
sense of the meeting, so.
and they write everything down.
So they should be a little experienced. So.
Yes, generally,
Okay.
and we can do this 2 ways. In some places and in some towns, the consultant provides all of the facilitators, and in other towns, the consultant trains people, for example, a master plan committee, or interested people from the town to act as facilitators. So that's something, again, that we would be negotiating once we receive the proposals and look through them. So you can do a mapping exercise like that, and what you do is you target various areas of the town and say, this is a great asset. Having the Blue Hills is a great asset, or whatever. Traffic in East Milton is a problem, or whatever the issue is. And you actually map that physically so that the consultant can then go back, because the master plan is in part about land use, the consultant can then go back and do formal maps to present to the next charrette. There are other things that you can do. For example, there are actual games that you can play. There's one that is not suitable for Milton, but that I did as part of a charrette for another town. And in this case, this town was trying to maximize the amount of commercial revenue it was getting. It's a much larger town than Milton, and it had much more land that was suitable for development or redevelopment. Again, this is not appropriate for us. But what they did was they had different types of development and the tax revenue it would get. So you had the type of development on one side and the tax revenue on the other. And they said, okay, again, big map of the town. I'd like this type of development here, that type of development here, this type of development here. And then we added it all up to see what that would do for them. Another example that may be more appropriate for Milton is you can have a should happen here, must happen here, and must not happen here. And so you identify different types of development and you say, okay, this type of development should happen here. So for example, in East Milton, we would like to encourage certain types of businesses or development, so that should happen here. This type of development must happen here. So if we had a parcel of land that we wanted some particular development, we'd have that. Or we may say single-family homes must be in this area, nothing else. And that's certainly true of some parts of Milton. And then certain types of development must not happen here. And that's where you can look at some of the land that is not currently developed, that we don't want developed, and we would say this type of development must not happen here. And so again, all of this gets mapped out.
But that's just a possibility. I don't particularly like that possibility because of the fact that you are talking about changing the zoning of a parcel without adequate.
No, this is
public.
all visioning, remember. This is the public coming in and saying what they're interested in. We're not talking about
Okay.
changing anything yet, we're
Right.
just seeing what the public's vision
You
is.
get,
Right.
the people suggested that this might be done.
Or
and-
might not be done.
Or might not be done.
Yes.
But whether or not, which is right is still a totally open question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we would progress with the various public workshops. And again, the workshops will be targeted to different themes. So a person could attend all 3 workshops and not feel that they're being repetitive. And then what would happen, because remember this is the visioning portion rather than the master plan portion, is that the consultant's going to come back to us with a report saying, this is what we have found out from our studies to be the vision for Milton. They may say there are multiple visions for Milton, but there's a preponderance of people wanting X or people wanting Y, and we don't know what that's going to be yet. So that's why we're doing it. The other thing they're going to do for us in their report is they're going to identify what the next steps would be if we wanted to continue with the process. And they're going to put a timeline and a cost to that. So the idea is that in January, we could put another article on the warrant to continue the process. And then by the time we would actually have to request the money, the consultant will say, these are your next steps, this is how much it would cost, and we can make that decision as a board whether or not we want to do that, whether or not we want to do part of it, however we want to do that. But that's part of their scope, is they're supposed to give us that information, because that was one of the questions we had this spring, is how do we know what we need to do and how much it's going to cost? So that was included in this RFP.
Now, my view is this, that
Yes.
once the visioning is complete, before they do a report, they've got to come and vision with the planning board, a final visioning session, and discuss all these visions.
Typically what happens is they'll do a draft report, they come and discuss it with the planning board. They may decide to do a public meeting with the draft report, they may not. Then again, we'll have to see if they've proposed an extra meeting. And then they do a final report based on the feedback they've gotten from the planning board or from the public. Yeah,
When they develop the vision,
yes.
is there any way to involve more of the public? In other words, is there a way to do a survey or ads in the paper to say, these are the 7, 8, 9 topics of visioning? Is, you know, you can write in or email in your priority on these topics, or your displeasure or happiness about this? Because I fear sometimes that there are people who are politically active,
Right.
and there are those who are not, but I don't want to put the people who are not necessarily politically active out of the process.
That's a really good point, and there's a couple of different methods for doing that. I have set up a Facebook account for this, and it needs to be better publicized, which it will do now that the consultant's coming on board. So that will reach some people, but it won't reach all of them. Newspaper ads, flyers, the public schools, the first public charrette will probably be after the public schools reopen, so we'll be able to potentially get out a flyer with that. There's one community that I'm working with that's doing a storefront. They've taken an empty storefront. They've figured out a way to staff it. We'd probably have to look at volunteers or something, but they're putting all the planning materials up in the storefront so that people can drop by when it's open and actually take the surveys and things right there. And that, again, depending on what's been proposed, might be something we want to consider. So there are a lot of tools. Simply having the charrettes in different parts of town will be a big help, because some people get there and say, oh, I don't want to go all the way out to wherever, because, you get home at the end of the day, and sometimes just leaving your house can be, I'm exhausted, I don't want to do it. So moving it around to different areas, and we need to...
It's unfortunate that we have to go to such lengths to reach people, but again, I feel like
but people are so
minority
busy.
might
Yeah.
decide what's the vision for Milton
The-
because
yeah.
of the
The
lack of...
minority surely will be involved in the visioning. We had a survey that we publicized a lot, but we got how many responses?
We got almost 700 responses,
Right.
which is
But-
actually excellent when
It-
you consider
it may
that
be-
as online
It may be
survey.
excellent, but it still is a minority of the 26,000 people in town. It's one,
Including children. To be fair.
so, but I guess my point is this, that a draft report, it sounds a little formal to me. It seems to me that this consultant needs to come to the board and say, this is where I'm going, where I want to go with my draft report, and discuss the draft report before doing it, because consultants, if the consultant comes in and the board says, this is awful, forget it, the consultant is not going to want to do another draft report. But if the consultant, gets off-the-wall suggestions from the public that attends, then the consultant needs a touch of reality. And I think that the board can give him that, him or her, or it.
I think
Or them.
that it is
Or them.
important for the board to have a voice in this, but I think we also have to give the public credit in that the likelihood of the vast majority of people who are going to participate in coming up with off-the-wall suggestions that would be totally anathema to the board is fairly slim. I think we have to give the public a lot of credit for participating in the process and make sure that in discussing this, we fully encourage the public to participate in the process, because it won't be a successful process without that
But you
participation.
recall, a lot of the suggestions from the 700 people were off the wall.
Depends, A, on your definition of off the wall. B, certainly in their essay questions and the portion where people got a chance to really talk about things.
The essays.
The essays, they did, and I'm sure you've all read the essays by now. I'm
No,
not-
we're waiting for the summary of the essays.
You had bound copies, you all received
We did?
bound
Of
copies.
the summary of
The
the
only person who
essays?
probably, no, we didn't do the summary, we're giving that to the consultant. The only person who probably doesn't have a bound copy is Mike, because he wasn't here at the point. but you
In
guys
other
received
words,
it.
we have to summarize the essays
No, the
ourselves.
consultant gets those. But I'm sure you've all read the essays at this point. They were
No,
on file at
we
the
are
library.
we are waiting for, we were promised.
After 3 years.
Promised.
You have not
essays.
read the...
I certainly haven't, but I
Interesting.
have inquired
So
about
if you
the
haven't
summary.
read the essays, how do you know whether or not the suggestions were off the wall?
I was looking at some of the suggestions that
So you have read some of the
were
essays.
listed
I will
in
say
the,
that many people took the opportunity to list a number of things that have been bothering them over the years.
Right.
That's just fine. That's part of the public process. But give the consultant, whichever one we choose, some credit for having the professional ability to
Right.
winnow through and use planning practice, good planning practice, to come up with something that will be useful to the town.
I think so. And specific developments on specific sites is not
That's not
useful.
necessarily part of this
Right,
process.
it's
I was
not,
giving you
it's
an
not a, it's
example.
not a useful.
I was giving you an
Not a-
example
you
of
mean an
how
ND,
things
you an
have been
ND?
done.
No, I'm simply
No, no,
saying
no,
if you say the Milton Hospital should do X, Y, Z, I mean, you can discuss possibilities, but any sort of specific site planning should not be part of the visioning.
No, the visioning is a plan, is the goal, the overall goals. It's not necessarily site-specific. That's not to say that people won't be allowed to, I mean, if the public wants to make site-specific suggestions, that's obviously up to them, but this is an overall goal for Milton.
And of
Just
course-
one thing,
Yeah.
the November election is what, November 8th?
I don't know
There's
off the
going to be
top of my
about
head.
85% turnout to vote.
Uh-huh.
If we could only inform everyone that votes that day, have
Well,
a
that's a
packet.
great idea.
So that's.
Target one of the charrettes soon after Election Day, so we
Well,
can
no,
have some.
but give the information out to
Yeah,
the voters
yeah.
when they come in.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
We'll probably be close to the third charrette at that point, so.
It'd be nice to, at that point even, to have a questionnaire that, you know,
Yeah,
develops a survey that,
And hand them out and take a minute and fill it out. when you're
yeah,
in.
The,
absolutely.
Then you really.
the
get
more people
captive.
involved, the basic things, the more
I-
people involved, the better.
Our goal is to get as many people as possible. I mean, people understand, people are busy, but as many people as we possibly can, and some of that will be when we target the charrettes. At least one of them should probably be on a weekend, so that
And
people
Emily,
can
older
participate.
people vote.
Oh,
They don't
absolutely,
necessarily have, they're not on the web.
right,
They don't have email and
Yes.
so forth, so,
yeah.
you know, it's-
I was actually thinking Fuller Village has quite a large room, and that might be one of the locations of the charrette, because that would certainly reach a large population in that precinct. So, but, you know, that's something we can talk about, is which sites we want to use. One of the schools might be a possibility as well. Cunningham Hall has been good. There's the American Legion Post, that's quite a large room. So there's places all around. East Congregational and East Milton might be willing to lend a room, or
Is
one of
there
the
a
other
primary
churches.
on this election? What, state senators and reps?
It's in September.
Yeah,
September, well,
that would be a great
will
time.
we be ready then? to
Yes,
the
absolutely. The
Senate?
first charrette will be in September. That's a great time.
No, but at least get the information, you
Yeah.
know, no postage, we don't have any postage, just hand it out as they come in, when they register, they're
Yeah.
given a little,
I think that's an excellent idea, Bernie. So we'll be using your cable to publicize it as well.
I think you need to read the proposals before you, because as you discuss different kinds of visioning, so did they.
Exactly.
So you're getting into
Exactly.
doing what they've already taken and proposed. So there's
They've
different
proposed
methods in here.
Some of them, what Emily says, and some of them,
Yes.
but of course, the bottom line is
and they
that
base their price on that too.
Yes.
it's all gonna be $25,000.
Unless they come in less, but yeah.
They-
That's
they-
highly unlikely, I grant you.
No one is going to come in at less than 25, because that's the
That's the appropriate amount.
appropriate price.
We should announce names, actually. We haven't yet done that. So the three proposals are from the Community Opportunities Group, which is in Boston, VHB, and Brown Walker Planners.
All right, where are the other two from?
VHB, they don't say right on here. You want me to read through the proposal?
I
So
assume
VHB
you
is
said-
probably the Boston, is it the Watertown?
Watertown.
Yeah. And Brown,
It's Newburyport.
yeah, Newburyport. So all
Okay.
three Massachusetts firms.
But the
Yeah.
bottom line, as I was going to say, is that this visioning report is going to be voted on by the town meeting. If they don't like it, the master plan process is
No,
dead.
The visioning report is not voted on by town meeting.
No, it will be before the town meeting when we request additional
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
And they
Yeah,
will
okay, fair enough. I
not,
see
they
what you
will
mean.
not vote the additional funds if they don't like the visioning report. And so it is incredibly important that the visioning report doesn't gore a lot of oxes along the way.
I would say that you should remember when you review these three proposals, the importance of ensuring a quality process. And when you review the names, I'm thrilled, by the way, that so many people volunteered to be on this committee. I was not expecting that many. So when you review the
When is
names,
the
keep in
deadline?
mind. The deadline was last week, so we had a
Okay.
few people miss it, but and get in later. But my feeling is if somebody wants to be a part of it, we ought to consider them. So I'm not too bothered about the deadline. It was just to give people a sort of, people need deadlines, yeah, exactly. So, but I'm thrilled that this many people applied. I wish we could take them all, but 17 is a bit unwieldy. What we may be able to do is, I've had at least one person who said, I can't be on the committee, I've got too much, but if you need volunteers for any part of this, so we may be able to draw on this pool, and some other people who have mentioned that, to pull them in as volunteers if we need them, possibly for publicity. This person was certainly willing to
If we
do
have
publicity.
people from each precinct, it would be nice if the person from each precinct would solicit more interest from that precinct.
Yes, that would be a good idea. And in fact, we have enough people we actually have at least one person, and I think two if you count the liaisons from each precinct. So we could almost have one person from each precinct. The other thing to remember is so many people have email lists of their friends, or, the parents of all the kids their own children go to school with, or church and all that, and we should be encouraging people to use these email chains to reach out. So you send them out to one group and they can send it out to the rest.
Bill, do we know how the 19 names break down as far as precincts are concerned?
We have a chart.
And so we do know.
We do know.
What's the breakdown?
Hold on.
Patience.
Well, I mean, it's
While he's doing that,
okay.
while he's looking it up, just so we don't have dead air time, on the Mass Planners list, which is emails where planners in Massachusetts can submit questions and answer other people's questions and all of that, two instructors at UMass Amherst in the Department of Landscape and Architecture and Regional Planning sent out an email seeking a town or city that needs work done on the first stages of a master plan or a similar planning project. And they'll have about 12 to 15 students to put to work for 13 weeks on the project. It's for this fall semester. So they're asking for a modest fee, of course, because schools need that, from the town, and could include data gathering, but they want to go beyond that to analysis and recommendations. So I chatted with one of the instructors today just to find out more, and said I would be chatting with you guys,
This is UMass Amherst?
UMass Amherst, to see if there was any interest. He did say he has another number of towns, I mean, this went out yesterday, he has a number of towns that are interested, but I thought before I talked further with him to see if you had any interest in me following this up.
Wouldn't the consultant have to be involved with?
The consultant would absolutely have to be involved. They'd be,
That
so we
reduces
would
the
need to.
consultant's fee.
No, we would have to find separate funding. You can't reduce the consultant. Find
Separate
funding. We
funding.
would have to request separate funding from any number of sources.
I lost that there. Why wouldn't it reduce their fee? Wouldn't they be able to
Because
use
you
these
wouldn't-
people to do
Not-
chores they would have paid for previously?
No, a consultant would not agree to do that.
Well, that's,
What we would do is we would have to,
We
if
could have,
we
if
would.
we'd known, we could have put it as part of the RFP. You've got to incorporate.
Yeah,
We
sadly,
didn't know.
we didn't know.
And we didn't.
So I would
but it's-
suggest.
But it isn't eliminated in the RFP. So at this point, you could induce participation from these consultants by asking if they would be willing.
I don't
to
think the
accept.
university would be willing, because we actually talked a little bit about that. He said his concern in working with us is that the consultant might not be interested in working with the students because it would affect the work that we're doing. So I would say that there are two options. We could define a parallel scope if we were interested in working with them, or we could suggest that they come back to us next fall to work on the second step and incorporate it that way. So, so those would be the two ways of doing it, is defining a separate scope, which we could potentially do.
How
Or
would
say
they, I
coming back
mean,
next year.
Amherst is a long way away.
The planning departments would go, I mean, something like this would take a couple of field trips. It's not that they'd be out here every week. They'd probably take a beginning of semester field trip and then an end of semester. The good news is we'd be invited to their final project potentially to critique it. That would be entertaining.
Road trip.
What
Yeah,
is
exactly,
the?
road trip to Amherst.
Oh, okay, Bill, have you figured it out?
I did.
What do we have?
We actually have representation from every precinct. I don't have the exact numbers for each. I know 8 has 4 people. There's 1 from 1, there's 2 from 2.
3 from 3?
There's 3 from 3.
Jay, go on.
2 from 4. 1 from 5. 1 from 6. 2 from 7. 1 from 9. 2 from 10.
So
And I've got
precinct 8 is-
two that I don't know what their precinct is.
So that will alter the numbers.
And
We
I
also
know there's
don't,
another person sitting on my desk that I didn't put in here.
you put a poor person, left a poor person sitting on your desk? Poor guy.
It seems-
We also don't know what the geographic
It seems to
distribution of
me
the
that we
liaisons
should,
yet.
as far as geographic is concerned, some of these precincts perhaps should be combined so that we have a choice.
Well, the other thing we have to remember to do is, it's not just geographic distribution, it's also experiential distribution,
And
so.
we only have five
We have
people
5
for
to
10
choose.
precincts, so it would seem to me that combining the precincts might
Two
be.
precincts. is-
I would suggest
Fine.
reading, once we get you the packet, reading the emails first and the resumes first.
Look at the
and
resumes, right.
What we've done is on the cover sheet, which lists everybody and their precincts and all that, we've also put a couple of questions you consider as you go through the resumes, and then ranking your top 5, and then we can have a discussion about this at our next meeting, and who we want to do it.
I like the idea of making it easier on the board
We could,
by dividing them up geographically, and then doing a designee for each of the two precinct things with one alternate for
Like a
that.
chairman and a vice chairman. of-
Well, no, the member and the alternate,
Alternate.
because it does seem to me that the potential for hard feelings here, this is not supposed to be a disagreeable deal.
I think you do not want to privilege geography exclusively to the type of experience that people are offering the board.
But it doesn't. It seems to me that if we, it's going to make it as a much easier process, it seems to me, to, I don't know, but
I believe the geography is extremely important.
I agree it's an extremely important, I just don't want to lock us out of the other considerations
But
we should place.
But I don't think,
You
you know,
can't-
maybe I'm, again, simplifying things, but I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to decide what you may find as a significant thing you'd like to see developed in your neighborhood or not. So I think it would be a disadvantage to have somebody from 3 precincts that are outside of the precinct decide that this precinct should develop X, Y, or Z without a representative. I'm back to the revolution. I want
Your taxation without
taxation or
representation.
planning without representation. I think every precinct, or like Alex is getting to, at least try to combine them to get down to the 5 members, but every precinct or group of precincts should be represented.
and
Well-
then you'd have a group of people for each 2 precinct.
Well, don't forget, there are actually 10 members of the master plan committee. And one of the reasons I'm saying hold off a bit until our next meeting at least, is because we don't know where the liaisons from the other committees are. So that will make a difference. You know, we don't want to decide our geographic distribution right now and find out that the school committee and the selectmen and all that are in.
All from one
Yeah,
precinct.
Exactly. So what I might suggest is, why don't we break it down 2 different ways? We can show it to you based on geography, we can show it to you based on experience, get the liaisons from the other boards in, and then you can look at it. But when we give you the packet, which will be prior to the next meeting, we'll give you plenty of time, you can decide which way you want to look at that and base your choices
But
on
we're
that.
going to want to know what the who the designees of the committees are.
Yes, we will know that by the
They've got
time.
to do that.
We will send that to you as part of the packet. So you have all of that information at once. So along with the scorecard for this. So we'll get you one big packet.
So we
But
only,
it-
we know two people who are on the committee right now. That would be that you're the chair and Tom Hurley is representing the selectmen.
He is representing the selectmen. Okay, so that's two precincts
Okay.
covered.
That was appointed last night.
What are those precincts? You're
I'm
9.
three. No, I'm 3. I haven't been 9 for years. They keep
Okay.
splitting me off somewhere else. I'm 3. I don't remember where Tom
People
is.
is Jimmy Mullen, as you
With the
know.
new things, I'm
I
not
was
sure
not
what Tom
planning
was
Jimmy
on.
Mullen.
Yeah, no thinking.
I think, wasn't Tom in 5? I don't remember. Was, yeah, well, that's not
He slid over now and
Okay.
I don't know what that one coming down is.
So we'll get the other liaisons, we'll do a nice packet with a couple of different ways of looking at it. And then the next question we should decide tonight is, do we want to interview all 3 of these guys? Do we want to shortlist it to 2, which kind of doesn't make sense with 3 proposals? Do we want to choose without an interview? Because if we want to do interviews, we'll have to set it up for the next meeting.
We have
So-
to read the, I mean, if it's clear that only one of them is acceptable, why interview? But we have to read
I
the
his
thing.
feelings on certain things.
Well, I mean, but we can have that one person in at some point.
So how would you like to do that? Do you want to send Bill your rankings, and if he sees that there's one clear winner, we won't bother with interviews? Or do you want to, because if we were going to interview, the most logical time would be next
Right,
meeting.
right.
But we're not going to meet before then to decide whether there's a clear winner or not, so.
Right, it's too bad, but I think that we should notify Bill, because I do think that if it's clear from the documents that who's best, we could perhaps interview that person and see if they present as well as they write,
I'd like to check a town that they've worked for to see,
the references.
They should have
just
included
because very important,
references, so.
their bedside manner, there's all kinds of things.
So, I almost would prefer to interview just to make sure that the physical, because their ability to present to a group is going to be critical in dealing with the public charrettes. And if you get somebody who looks great on paper but sits there and mumbles at us during the presentation, I'd be really worried, no matter
That's
what
why-
references there were, so.
That's why if one of them seems, I mean, that's 45 minutes, 15 minutes a crack, and that's a certain amount of time.
That is a certain amount of time. Our first hearing on the 26th starts at 7. Do we have anything else scheduled before that?
We do.
Are you
No, we have
suggesting interviewing on the 26th?
I was thinking it, just keep us on track and moving forward.
We actually have the 2,
Scenic road hearings.
yes. That's 6:35, 6:45.
So that would give
Could-
us only 15 minutes for an interview.
And let the public on television see the
Well,
caliber of
6:30.
people
That's not a bad idea.
that we're about to hire.
I would say that if we can call in the one person who seems strongest, that we could do that way, but
But if there's a tie, then you're going to have to,
if there's a tie, then you have to break it.
all right, so send your rankings to Bill and he can let us know if there's a tie or just one.
Do we want to set a time frame on that? That we need to email
It doesn't
us
have to be a public hearing, so.
No, I mean.
Yeah, but.
By
We want
getting
to
it.
internally say,
Well,
we'll
wait,
get
Oh,
that answer to
The
Bill
nice thing
by-
is that we have to wait for Emily to do the score sheet, so we can't do anything until that happens. And if
Are we
it-
going to have a
Oh,
score
the
sheet for
pressure.
and we probably want a summary of the essay questions along with
You're
the
not
score
getting a
sheet.
summary of the essay questions. This is why we hired a consultant. I actually started, and I realized that it was beyond anybody's unpaid capability of dealing with that. I could still be working on it.
Right.
How would I go about getting a copy of this package? Anybody?
Just gonna send it out.
Bill, I actually, for a physical copy, he could print it out for you, because you still have a copy in the office, don't you, the master plan survey and all the responses? If not, I have it on PDF. I PDF'd it in, so I just
How many
need to.
pages is it?
It's approximately 230-something pages.
It's huge.
Yeah, you can see why I haven't done
Two-sided.
any summaries. Not two-sided. But the PDFs came out two-sided, so I need to clean them up a little bit, so, which I can do as soon as I possibly can. I do have guests this weekend, so, supposed to be giving a call out to my guests, so.
Emily, just one other question, Mr. Chairman. Bill Clark has had an awful lot of experience with these charrettes when he was with the Mass Area Planning Council, so I hope Bill is, and of course I know you're making a living doing this, but so I just hope that Bill gets involved with this too.
I don't think
Like
this
with
could
some
be
of the
done.
questions we should be asking
Yeah.
the potential people that are about.
I mean, he is.
That is a very good point. He's an integral part of this, so.
Exactly.
So we've got about 3 more minutes before
We have indeed, you've done
7:30.
an excellent job
Thank you.
discussing the master plan, and
Try to
do you
be
have
useful.
any final wrap-up, a little 3-minute wrap-up?
A little 3-minute wrap-up,
I
just,
actually, rather
Yes.
than your wrap-up, you're talking about when that person could come in at the next meeting.
yes.
7 o'clock, you're dealing with the Hendry's project, and we haven't given times to the other public hearings, but we have, tonight you've got the Bosworth case starting. You've got, that'll be at 7:30, that will continue on till, I'm guessing that you won't do everything in that tonight, that'll get continued, so I don't know how long the Hendry's one is going to take at the next meeting. And then you're supposed to sign the documents for 3650 Elliott Street, Milton Hill project, if you get the right answers that you're looking for tonight. So we're somewhere between 7:30 and 8:30. And how long are you looking for a presentation from them to be?
I'd say a 15-minute presentation and 15 minutes Q&A.
Okay,
So we'd need a minimum of an hour if there's going to be a potential tie break. You know, if there's a clear one, we have half an hour, 15 and 15. But if we have a tie break, we need to make sure we have
okay.
an hour to go through that.
And if necessary, we could meet the following week,
Okay.
just to determine the,
Yep.
All right, so we'll see how tonight goes. We'll see what you come up with, and I'll piece it together.
all right, do you
That's
want to
good.
go and alert the applicants for 333
So you-
Hillside Street?
Send out the scorecard, if you will.
I will do. It'll probably be Monday-ish,
Okay.
so I'll need a bit of time. But yes, I will do that.
Sufficient time to
absolutely.
get the bill for, you have to notify these people they need to be at this meeting.
Right, exactly.
Mr. Bronzes?
How are you?
Good, and yourself?
Wow.
Welcome, welcome.
Is your horse outside?
What's that?
Your horse, is he
Oh,
outside?
yes, yes.
All right. It's now 7:30.
Yeah.
Let's go. This is a hearing on what's known as an 81Y plan for premises at 333 Hillside Street. And an 81Y plan is the same as a subdivision plan in most respects. There are some legal differences, but the 81Y plan will show a street and a lot on that street. And the planning board principal mission here is to make sure that the street meets its standards for a street serving 2 houses. And as I understand it, the premises include some wetlands, and so a full-fledged 30-foot wide street with 2 sidewalks would be not the way to go. The Conservation Commission wants the least damaging street for, which will serve the development. And we have approved a number of these private lanes. This would be a private street. And in general, they're 14 feet wide, Bill, is that?
14 feet wide is what you have been allowing the private lanes to be.
No. So that would be probably the width that we would deal with here, and a portion of this site goes by the lot, providing the frontage. And the street can, it seems to me, narrow to 12 or 10 feet as it goes by the driveway. But there has to be, as I understand it, as I understand the law, there has to be an actual street, constructed street, for the lot to have frontage on that street. So it can't be frontage on a paper street. In other words, you can't construct it to the driveway opening and then have it unconstructed. You've got to construct it to the requisite length so that you have, and I guess the question is, how much frontage do you need? How much frontage do you think you need?
200 feet.
That's probably right. Might as well do the 200. This case has been subject to some litigation, and we have resolved a number of issues in the litigation. The land court determined that a one-lot subdivision could be pursued under General Laws Chapter 41, Section 81Y. And the land court also said that there was a right-of-way for a street established for use by this lot. So those were two rather significant issues, and it only took 2 or 3 years, and we've now resolved them. So why don't you make your presentation? As I say, the papers for this, the plan itself should be the same as a definitive subdivision plan, except entitled 81Y, 81Y Definitive Subdivision Plan. So, introduce yourself. I've turned the easel a little bit so that the TV can pick it up and the people in the audience can see it also. And we have...
You're going to get that to both. Not for us. So we'll flip it back now.
All right, now no one can see it in the back.
What if it was pushed?
Do we have extra
Back.
copies of this thing?
I didn't bring any extras.
Okay. Okay, well,
I think we have to get into the discussion because you're going to wind up shifting plans in a minute.
all right, fine.
Fair enough.
Go.
Hi, my name is Jim DeSalle from DeSalle Burke and Associates. We prepared this plan dating back quite a few years, and as you said before, it went through some litigation, and we're back before you with the original subdivision that was applied for back in 2000. The last day of the plan was 2006. What we propose on these plans was a full-blown road, no waivers, sidewalk both sides, giving this lot adequate frontage, which is the 200 feet. it was obviously, like you said, it's I think an excessive sized layout for one house or the two houses that are actually going to be using it. And that's why that other alternative came to be, which pretty much just mimics the existing driveway that's there right now. But as we said before, we have the grading, and we believe this road and layout conforms with all the requirements of the Milton bylaw at the time. The drainage works, the septic, this is on private sewer, so the septic system, we had the perk test done, and we can put a 5-bedroom septic on the house, on the lot. We had designed a drainage system with a detention basin out here and some underground drainage and a replication area for the minor amount of wetlands that we were filling in. Would go in this area here. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, we went through this originally with the thought that we weren't going to get any waivers, so we went through and designed it so that it would meet all the requirements.
But I think the Conservation Commission requires that the road be the least, in other words, they wouldn't approve a 30-foot road if we say all you need is a 14-foot road.
Yeah,
The Conservation Commission would definitely, I think we're saying all you need is a 14-foot road.
no, that's true. I'm just saying the way we designed this, or
Right.
as shown,
Right.
and as it's gone through the
We
head.
might approve it, but we'd approve it by saying, you don't need this much road, and you don't need to displace as many wetlands. You could do it a lot less.
Absolutely.
So, and that's what we want you to do.
Excellent.
So you've got a Plan B, because you were very foresighted about this.
The Plan B, there's many other plans, but the Plan B that we submitted with the, this application pretty much mimics the existing road, a driveway that's there right now. We did show 16 feet because that's pretty much the width of the driveway that's there right now. We have we proposed, 14 feet. I don't think Charlie has an issue with picking 14. We super elevating the road so that the water will be, can be contained on this side with a swale, and we have a drainage system designed that will handle the runoff from the smaller road.
All right, I have an extra copy of that. You've got extra copies of that too, don't you? No?
No, I thought we submitted them.
All right. Why don't why don't we put this down for the benefit of you folks in the audience? This is the same one, right?
Yep.
Here it is. I don't know if anyone wants to stand here and hold it.
Move the tripod back about 4 feet.
All right. I will leave that to the expert.
It's the same one.
It's the same plan, you can leave it there.
Same plan.
God, it's the same plan.
All right. We have,
You guys gonna have to look at this one.
Oh, they can't see it.
okay, can the TV see the plan now? All right. And there is a plan in the audience, and the board actually has a plan or two. Okay.
If you can't see it from the back, you come up beside Mr. Sheffield, you can't see.
So this design here is pretty much going to mimic what's existing right now. We have some minor grading changes, but it's just to smooth out the road. But the existing driveway is approximately 16 feet wide.
Jim, turn around and face the mic.
And we propose, and if you follow the proposed grades, they don't think they change a foot in any spot. We have it 16 feet down to the double drive, where this driveway comes in, where there'd be 2 people coming in and out. And then we proposed to narrow it down to 12, where it became a single driveway to access this one house. would obviously have to change that to bring the 14 feet in the cul-de-sac down to the end to get your 200 feet.
Well, it seems to me that you've got to, that's right, you need frontage on a street, and after that first driveway, it would be basically, the street would be for one house, and so it could go down to 12 feet, but it should be in the right-of-way.
Yep. Well, okay, so you want to bring the right-of-way, the street or the 12-foot portion of the pavement, at least the 200 feet within the right-of-way?
I think that it has to be in order to have frontage.
Can I make a different suggestion to you?
Yeah,
You're attempting to keep it out of the wetlands.
yeah.
By keeping it out of the wetland, if you take and make it gravel, bring it back and bring it in here. Continue what is already there. Right now, it would go across Charlie's land, or it goes across Charlie's land like this. But if he could bring it back down into what is that right-of-way, that would give him his 200 feet.
Well, let's see this.
Instead of
idea.
having it paved, just have it the existing gravel that it is
I
now.
don't think that we can do a gravel street because it's supposed to meet standards. I mean, we've never done a gravel street, ever,
private.
since I've been on the board. It's a private street. It's a private street, Bill. It's not a dirt road. We've never approved a dirt street in all the time I've been on the planning board, and I've been on the planning board for 25 years.
I have another option. Just, it goes by the same thing that Bill was talking about. If we put an easement in this area here, as we had proposed on Brush Hill Road,
Yeah.
same idea to get around the tree, same idea to get around the wetlands, and we could pave it, go through it, across an easement, across Charlie's land here, and then go back and still pave
Or you could,
the gravel road that's actually there, cross it back in to get our 200 feet, and we can stop there.
yeah.
If that solves the problem with getting the 200 feet of
Well,
pavement.
it's sort of like the tree up on Brush Hill Road.
Yep.
Same idea. I think, yeah. I
Tree,
think that-
wetlands is, I think,
Right, exactly.
a similar benefit.
Which is to say that you avoid the wetlands by going onto an easement on Mr. Bosworth's property, since the whole right-of-way is only a right-of-way to begin with, rather than something else. Another right-of-way I don't think makes any difference.
The new road would take a right of way on the Bosworth land.
Right, but the new road is a right-of-way on Mr. Dean's land currently. The new road is on Mr. Dean's land. And the land court said that a right-of-way exists over that land for a street. And Mr. Bosworth can do exactly the same thing, grant a easement for a street to go around the wetlands.
This is the current one. He brings it in, goes around.
So,
Right.
I think that's a good idea.
So if you use, you have one of these too. If you go to the first page, it's the existing conditions.
Yeah,
What you're talking about is paving 200 feet in length.
right.
I mean, if you put the two together, here's the road coming
They have to have
up.
200 feet of frontage.
It's coming up
So if he paves this distance, whether it's I'm concluding
to
that I'm
what
showing
is
200 feet right
200
now,
feet.
that would give him his 200 feet of frontage.
Well, it's a straight line distance. It's a
It's
straight,
not down the road?
it's, no, you
No,
don't,
it's down.
it's a straight line. So it would be 200 feet, but I would measure a straight line distance of 200 feet from here
Eddie, can I see that?
to, wherever it is.
Oh, straight line on his property line.
Yeah,
Contour line 135.
It's right there.
we don't need it.
I'm just showing you 200
What's that,
pounds.
200?
That's 200 from here to there.
Plus some
So they have to pay that.
Yep.
I'm just curious, is this road presently paved?
Oh,
This is a street though,
It's a dirt.
and a street, you can't have frontage on a street that is not a street.
That meets the requirements that says it's paved.
Right, in other words, this would be like granting frontage on a paper street if you just said, forget it and use what's there.
so it's 60 feet of 60 feet of pavement on Mr. Dean's property.
That would, if that does it, that does it. But that's, I mean, you need that, you need the street. It's a private street. You'll be, you know, obligated to maintain it as a private street.
This guy has frontage now.
Inadequate, so it's here. But this is his frontage.
But this isn't presently a street.
Right, that's his driveway.
So where's his frontage?
Right here.
Is it 200 feet?
All right, do you get the idea? All right. So why don't we, what does the board have to say?
I'm just trying to conclude what's going on here, and that is that he has to pave this street back to get his 200
He has to
feet.
construct a street
That
in
meets
order
all
to
the-
have a street that qualifies for frontage, because he needs 200 feet of frontage, and frontage is on a street.
And as usual, when asked for education, 12 feet is sufficient paved street?
For one house?
I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, I mean, if Mr. Dean were to say, I want to build a house,
Yeah.
I think that we should have a condition that it has to be expanded to 14 feet.
What exists today in the town of Milton, what is required for it to be
For a street,
correct?
or whatever the planning board determines is sufficient.
Okay.
But the planning board has precedence.
What hell's that?
And the
Give me a present.
the precedent is that little lane that we constructed up off Pleasant Street.
Deer Run Lane.
Deer Run.
And that's 14 feet, isn't it?
I think you reduced it, yeah.
That is
We
14
reduced
feet.
it to 14
Okay,
feet.
that's
Yeah.
about 12, 14 houses.
Two
No,
houses.
Deer Run Lane is two houses.
one-
And one house,
One house,
on
Right.
Deer
that's
Run
right.
Lane.
right,
One
And-
house,
and
the
I'm
other one
building
has a
the-
driveway off of Pleasant Street.
That's right.
right. And there was,
Brush Hill, we were going to do 16, but that was for 6 houses. So,
But there was
14 for
18.
two houses
What?
seems.
But there was 18.
yeah, we reduced
I
it.
mean,
16?
14
Pretty sure
for
we're gonna do
two,
16.
14
We
to
changed- I
this
could be
one,
wrong, though.
and then 12 for one.
Is that gonna be a taking, or is that gonna be
No.
an actual?
It's going to be a
paved
private,
way?
it's going to be a
Paved
paved
surface,
street.
14
A
feet.
paved private, yes.
14 feet.
14 paved with a shoulder.
So
Have we
he's-
confirmed with the fire department and
That's-
DPW and all that usual stuff?
We've confirmed elsewhere with the fire
But for this
department.
project,
Wait a
have we
minute,
just,
wait a
yeah.
minute, wait a minute. I have taken, per your rules and regs, and given plans to the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health, the Fire Department, the Engineering Department, and the DPW. I've given it to, the only one I've heard back from was engineering and the fire. The engineering wants to know what the residual pressure calculations are for the water going down to that house and for Dean's.
Yeah,
He said Mr. DeSalle could handle that one very easily. I went to the fire department and they came back and they go, the length of that driveway or lane is such that they want a fire hydrant down just past Mr. Dean's house and they want one at the top of the street. The only
Okay.
other fire hydrants out there, there's one at Forest Street and there's one down at Stonehill Lane.
sounds like a good idea. The more hydrants, the better. But we're probably not going to make you have a police box.
Do they exist anymore?
We can make an
Wait.
exception.
So back to the width of the road,
Yeah.
are we asking to have it 12 feet or 14 feet?
I think that it should be 14 feet to Mr. Dean's driveway, and then it should go down to 12 feet because there's only going to be one house on the rest, with the provision that if Mr. Dean wants to build another house, he should expand it to 14 feet.
Mr. Dean,
Mr. Dean should.
what about the curve? It's gonna be like Cape Cod berm? No granite
It
curve?
probably is going to have a Cape Cod berm because it is pretty.
Goes back here?
Cape Cod berm is what
Oh,
you're
okay.
suggesting?
It's a super elevated road, so you can put it on one side, but the water sheds into the swale on the right-hand side.
Okay.
There's no reason for a berm on the
You
other
don't want a
side.
berm.
No.
You don't want on the other side.
Why have that agreed by the board?
But-
There's no reason for
Just,
a
there's no
berm.
reason for it.
If there's no reason for it, we're not going to require
Did you
it.
ask?
But the engineering people will give us the word on that.
If we go to 12 feet, Alex, do you think that it would be a good idea to have the fire department weigh in on that?
I think that what they are proposing is 1,000 feet of 12-foot roadway that the fire department signed off on
On the other side?
down the street. I mean, the fire department would be thrilled to have 14 feet. And it isn't, it's the pleasure of the board. I think that 12 might do it, but if Mr. Dean were to see fit to develop, we'd want 14 feet.
No, I understand, and again, you're educating me on the pleasure of the board, but still, safety is paramount.
Yeah, actually, to that point, is there a way, should a fire engine, God forbid, have to go down your driveway, is there an area for it to turn around? Because it doesn't, I can't tell from the
There'll
width.
be a T.
There will
We
be a
can
T.
provide that in the final design. In
Okay.
that 50-foot wide right of way, we can install a cul-de-sac or a T
Okay,
with plenty of room for them to turn around.
okay.
There'd also be enough room in the Dean driveway to turn around with the 14 feet going down to 12.
Okay, good to know, thank you.
And I understand what you say about the fire department weighing in on the other side, but I still think it would be a good idea. There might be
I have no problem.
peculiarities to this site that I'm
Right,
Right, you
not
never know.
picking up on right
I
now.
mean, the fire department and the traffic commission, I mean, the fire department, their interest is getting their fire engines in and out.
Mhm.
That's what their interest is. They don't care that much about police cars and ambulances, except for their ambulance.
I'm sure if this is open, they'd turn around in the front lawn if they needed to, that's not a problem,
Yeah, exactly.
but I don't know how this is treated along this 12 feet.
And I think we can accommodate that pretty easily. We can cut the paving down to 12 feet after Dean's property and leave a 1-foot wide shoulder on either side of the road for any
Yeah.
excessive wide vehicles that need to get
I'm
down.
not even suggesting that it's required, I'm just suggesting that for safety reasons, the fire department should have an opportunity to weigh in on it, that's all.
I think that's, they've been asked, and they'll find out from the
Do they
chief.
understand the width of the road and how it
No.
goes from 14 to 12
No, all they
feet?
did is look for the driveway. But I do know that that turnaround in Mr. Dean's driveway is not quite as simple as it may seem, because he has low stone walls, because there's a
Right,
pipe that goes underneath the driveway, and it comes at an odd angle. I do believe that the turnaround is probably going to be up where the road splits to drop back, one onto the right-of-way and two to go up to the proposed house. So somewhere in there is going to be a turnaround.
okay.
But I mean, it's all
Is that right?
can be done with easements if necessary.
We can provide a cul-de-sac at the end of the paved road, a gravel cul-de-sac for them to use.
Right. My comment was that it would be up where the,
The end of this pavement.
yes, it would be here.
We don't really want a cul-de-sac.
They could actually do it right here.
We want
Where
a
the,
T.
where your driveway
Whatever
goes-
you would like, Mr. Chairman.
I think a T would be nice.
Sugar and cream?
somewhere right in here.
And are you preferring that
Because this
it's,
is coming
less-
back.
This is
It's
coming
less
back.
Coming back
bad.
into the
It's less
Yeah,
bad.
this is gonna change. This will come up here now.
Less impact to the wetlands?
We're not gonna pave here and here. Why would we pave this and not use it?
You
So
can't-
we'll do something in here.
I thought we were suggesting that you were gonna pave the road coming in this direction.
Yep.
We
To get your frontage.
Correct.
Yes.
And then when you said put a cul-de-sac.
Somewhere in
I
there.
naturally grabbed onto the fact that the cul-de-sac
We're
would be at
gonna,
the end of that
yes,
area.
that's where we'll keep it. Yeah, a T.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
cul-de-sac.
A turnaround area.
Yeah.
A turnaround.
All right, obviously, the drainage will be reviewed. And as far as existing conditions, there is going to be an existing conditions plan, which is part of the original filing, which, if it needs updating, you can update it. And, you know, it'll be the same as a definitive subdivision plan and show all the things that a definitive subdivision plan should show. I don't think they need a sidewalk. What does the board think?
For 2 houses? I don't think so.
All right.
No. Again, it'll minimize the impact in the area.
Streetlights,
Maybe at the entrance if required, other than that.
maybe at the entrance. Maybe a streetlight at the entrance.
Which entrance? At
Hillside.
Hillside?
Hillside.
On Hillside.
What do they have in some of the other
Street,
ones?
it's not
Alex,
What,
you wasn't in the
Brush
area.
Hill, didn't we require it at the bottom of each
Harlan
driveway?
Street
It
is
seems a bit
pretty,
much.
gets pretty dark on the, near the reaches.
Brush Hill was, the lights were on each property.
Yeah, each property, that's what I thought, so, but for 2 houses, that almost seems,
And I don't think, I think that I don't think streetlights would be a good plan.
yeah, I was trying to think and,
Do
trying
they
to think the
exist?
last time I drove down Hillside in the dark, I don't think it's necessary, really.
No.
How do they exist on Hillside right now? Does anybody know?
They've got streetlights.
Flashlights, they have flashlights.
They've got streetlights.
They're pretty sporadic though.
Lanterns.
They're on, but there's.
They're all right.
And they don't pave the streets.
This will be no different from, I mean, it'll be better than it is now, and it won't be,
It seems odd to call out one street with a street light, though. So think about it.
so we'll find out where the DPW wants their hydrants, and whether they want the water line looped. This is, so we'll find out some additional stuff.
Public comment?
And we're going to, yes, after the board finishes, we're going to, and there's going to be, you're going to have a homeowner's covenant saying the street will be.
Yep.
Right.
Right. Yes, Ed.
Before I'm prepared to vote on this, Mr. Chairman, I think we need much more clarity. Included clarity for the neighbors who live up in this area. Nothing here is on color. Again, it's the old black and white, which nobody's picking up at home because it's not in color. And the presentation was not that great from various parties. But I think we need clarity on a plan which is simple, showing the ownership, showing where the thing is 12 feet wide, 14 feet wide, where it's located, so on and so on and so on, the various things we discussed tonight.
Right. They're going to they're going to have a revised plan, which is going to come back at our next session.
With appropriate colors.
And I think coloring it is really, really good. It's very helpful, as long as you know, you're consistent.
No, we don't have a problem coloring it up. The question was, we weren't sure which way we're going with this.
Well,
And it's,
I think-
I mean, there's a lot of work to coloring them up, so
I think-
I'd rather just color up the one that we're gonna go with.
But you know what we want. And it is, you're absolutely right, that for the viewers, the color is good. So,
I just lost that point. Are we asking them to put a street light out on Hillside?
no.
No,
I agree with that.
you should drive up there some night.
I go that way quite a bit.
Bring your GPS with you.
All right. More questions by the board?
Not at present.
I mean, all the waivers will be listed on the plan, but that's just the way you do it, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, now that we know which way we're going with it,
All
like I
right,
said,
okay.
the question was, were we going
Okay.
the original 2006 subdivision, which had no waivers, and
Right.
just put the road in?
Exactly.
Or I had assumed, just from talking with Bill, that there might be some changes.
Okay. Why don't we hear from the The public.
We'll see a copy of the revised plan.
Oh, my God, we were going to continue the hearing, we're going to have a hearing on the revised plan.
But we'll see a copy before we...
Oh, yeah. No question. Ah, Mr. Sheffield.
I'm Attorney Bob Sheffield, and I represent Martin Dean, who is significantly affected by this, and he wants to express the fact that he's supportive of the plan, that he finds that the 14 going down to 12-foot road is acceptable.
Does he want to develop further down?
He is not planning to, and
I understand that he's going to expand it if he does.
that has not been specifically discussed,
Well,
but I would discuss it with him.
Okay.
He is very interested in avoiding having streetlights as being unnecessary and intrusive. He is also emphasized that there would be no need for sidewalks on a one-house or a two-house street. And the board has already discussed and concurred with that. And he wants to work with Mr. Bosworth to bring out the best results which are acceptable to the town.
All right, well, and it will be in everyone's interest to do it that way. So, thank you for your presentation, and let's hear from whoever else wants to be heard from.
Yes, my name is Will Gregg.
Come on up and take Mr. Bosworth's chair. Or Mr. Sheffield.
Or the spare chair. There you go. I live
Speak
at
into the microphone.
I live at 437 Hillside Street, and I own land, backland, woodland behind my property at 437, which abuts actually Flory Locke's land further down the 50-foot wide easement pathway. So my concern is that I still have access down that right-of-way, which I've had for my entire ownership of the land, and my family's had for their ownership before that. My concern is that nothing in this plan impacts the ability to still use that right-of-way, which is my deeded right under my, my property ownership.
Right, when it goes around the wetland.
Right, when it goes around the wetland.
You've got the right to use the road down the right-of-way, but when it takes the turn around the wetland, the easement would have to be for the benefit of the people who can use the right-of-way. So that makes sense, because it is a street.
Right, and I want to make sure, obviously, grading would have to be considered such that wherever paving ends or wherever a T is created, that you can have continued vehicular travel down that road.
It would not block off the road.
Right.
It would not block off
the continued use of that,
continued use.
or nor would that use be limited. I assume the easement could be granted to the landowners that still need to use that right-of-way for access.
Yeah, well, that's how I see it, that
Existing
people
right-of-way.
entitled to use the street will be entitled to use it. I mean, it's just being improved.
Right. My concern was just that as it enters Bosworth's property and then continues down, that's not, there's no gate there that you need a lock to get through, or that there's no encumbrance on that use.
It has to be as though it were within the right-of-way. I mean, we're putting it around the wetland in order to solve the problem, and we don't want to create new problems by doing that. So the easement has to be basically the same as the current street.
Yeah.
The access allowed has to be as the current right-of-way.
Exactly.
Right.
The same,
No reason it can't.
Same rights. No reason it shouldn't be just the
The
same.
existing part jumps out of the 50-foot right-of-way, goes on to Mr. Bosworth's property, and then comes back into the right-of-way.
All right,
So all it's going to do is continue in that same manner.
well, I mean, you're going to get to look at the new plan.
Right, I don't know if,
Documents.
yeah, and I don't know how the easement is defined, if it's a dead straight line or if it follows the road.
Now, what is defined?
The easement.
Which easement?
The 50-foot, no, the 50-foot right-of-way.
It's a
Whether that, I mean, I don't know how it's defined in a deed or on a plot plan, whether.
Straight.
But it's straight,
line.
I
That's it
think
right
what you're
there.
getting at is the existing, physical existing.
Goes outside of the
roadway
way.
Goes outside, you can
Goes outside.
Today.
Right, yeah, yeah, there you
So there, you're already in a situation where
go. Right. And my,
it probably isn't on paper that you have the right.
to do
Well,
that, to take that little
will be.
turn.
But
But we-
what
But it will
Alexander
be.
Forbes declared was a 50-foot easement. And then the street was constructed, then the roadway was constructed, and they didn't pay too much attention to
Right.
the
Clearly.
easement. But I think that the easement is shown as probably, well, it's probably the right easement.
Okay. So we're expanding that easement supposedly, or
It's going to-
proposing
yeah,
to.
You're going to get to use the road, the street that's being constructed
Right.
as, for the purposes you're currently using the street declared by Alexander Ford.
Okay.
And that will be in writing?
It will indeed,
Where will it appear on the plan?
it will appear on the plan.
Comes here, comes
It
So
will
does it-
appear on the plan, and it will be,
That's 200 feet.
it will be,
So the pave.
part of the document.
He just says, what he's concerned about is the use of this.
Right, 'cause that-
Well, exactly,
So we'll have to make.
It will be
we can
in
make
the
sure that we
easement.
see
It will be in the
language,
easement of the
and that will be
property.
incorporated.
So is that go with the land or with an individual, I guess? Is
It will run to the benefit of the people who have the benefit of the current easement.
Okay, that's satisfactory to me.
And Rackham will be thrilled.
Very well.
All right,
Judge who?
Thank you.
who else would like to be heard? Let me make a note of that.
Hi, I'm John Weltman. I live at 286 Hillside Street. And I'm already I have two concerns. One is about fire, and the other is about the 20-foot access that's already on the plan. Fred Chase originally owned the property before deeding it to Alexander Forbes. And I own Fred Chase's property. When Fred Chase did that, he knew that Alexander Forbes intended to build a roadway there all the way from Hillside to Harlan Street. And he reserved for himself and for all future landowners the right to access that roadway or any portion of it that was ever developed. I want to make sure that any berm that they're talking about doesn't block my 20-foot access way. I don't really know what we're talking about in terms of a Cape Cod berm, so I may be thinking something stupid. There's not going to be any lip that's going to block the roadway. Okay. So the other thing that I'm concerned about is fire. I hear what the fire department is saying now. I read back to you from the 2004 decision of the zoning board that said the lot could not be safely or conveniently accessed by Milton Fire Department vehicles during temperate times of the year. The board finds that it would be literally impossible for fire and police vehicles and equipment to service this lot during the winter season due to snow and ice conditions or during times of hurricanes, tornadoes, or substantial rainstorms. The health and safety of persons occupying a residence on the premises would be substantially endangered and imperiled. I'm very concerned because my house, the Swanson house, Mr. Dean's house, is just covered in woods, let alone Will's house. I'm desperately concerned that what we're saying here is going to become a problem in terms of fire and safety vehicles. And I really would like to see some sort of report that indicates that this is all of a sudden a totally different perspective than 8 years ago, which was unequivocal.
Who wrote that?
This decision came down on June 30th, 2004. It was by John Leonard, Chairman, Virginia Donahue King, Board Member, and Jeffrey Mullen, Board Member.
There
It
was
is-
the suggestion
this-
that they allow a street to be built? Or was this use of the dirt road?
I'm not sure.
It was the use for the existing roadway as it
I
stands.
suspect it was for the use of the existing roadway, but we certainly will ask the fire department. We've got a letter into the fire department, and we will make sure that the chief is reasonably happy, if not totally happy.
We'll also put hydrants closer to your house than now exist.
I've already got one at my house, so that's fine. I've got a long, thin driveway myself, and I've got a hydrant, but I've got a complete circular turnaround, but I'm not impacting wetlands, and it's been there for a long time. To me, the concern for the area is about fire more than anything else, and I want to make sure that's been very carefully looked at, because I'm looking back at this decision, and it may be relating to a dirt roadway and that's something paved, but in fact, we're not talking about significant more. It's already paved as far as I can tell. There may be potholes in it, but I just want to make sure that we're not going to have any problems with
Maybe
fire
that's
in the
when
area.
these gentlemen, redesign the plan here, that we give the fire department a chance that want to weigh in.
Okay.
Okay.
So how do you spell your last name, please?
Weltman.
What's your address, please? Your address, 286?
286 Hillside Street, or 287? 287 Hillside Street, sorry.
All right, thank you.
I said 286, but I meant
You did,
287.
yeah.
I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Didn't know where I was.
All right. Yes.
Thank you. My name's Andy Cahill, 325 Hillside Street. I'm not sure I understand the plan as well as others do here. I don't read plans for a living, and I'd just like to try to understand, Mr. DeSalle, I know that you talked about it a little bit, but the net difference in the road as it exists today, down past Mr. Dean's place, I understand what happens after that, but in the road that exists today, could you just give me the net, you said minimum height change, what else changes? I understand the new width.
What's going to be, it'll be narrower, and what's going to happen is we're going to have a small vegetative swale on the right-hand side that's going to channel the water, which will be on your side.
The right side as you're
On the
going
right side
down.
as you go in, away from the wetlands. And and I say a channel, but it's not a channel. You'll barely be able to see it. It'll just be like a grass swale.
So that'd be between the current road and the wall, or
Correct.
does the wall get impacted?
The wall will not get impacted. And we're gonna catch the water at the edge of the road, and it's gonna channel down to the back and get treated. And it gets treated all the way along. It's a very common practice. And we used it up on, it's a similar design that we used up on Craig Hill Estates. But what happens is we catch all the water, and we funnel it down, and then it gets discharged after it gets treated into the wetland, so we're recharging all the water. And what's going to happen is the road will be elevated, super elevated, and what that means is instead of having a crown in the middle of the road and then drainage on both sides, where it's only 14 feet wide, or we had proposed 16, the road will be, when you look at it, will be slightly, it'll be like 4 inches or 5 inches higher on the left side, which will
Move the water into the swale.
over here, so the water gets into the swale and goes. And it's going to look virtually like it does right now. It actually might be a little narrower.
The height of the road, you said, was minimal changes, I believe.
On the grades, and we'll show it on the profile, because we only have the profile for the proposed full-blown road, because we weren't sure where we were going with it, but on the next submission, you'll see, and I'll point out exactly what the changes are. Pretty much right now, what's happening is you have an uneven road. So all we're gonna do is just smooth out. So at some points, it'll raise half a foot or a foot,
Okay.
just to smooth out.
So that range is a foot,
Oh, yeah,
half a foot to a
The change is
foot.
very minor. Most of the change is when we first transitioned from the Hillside Street in.
And what change will that be?
There's your foot and a half.
With that, foot and a half.
Yeah, there's some spots where it's about a foot and a half, and like I said, the road's not even, and we have to super elevate it a little bit, so the left-hand side will come up a little higher.
So the most you need to raise that road in any one place might be, is
Just
what?
looking at the areas that we have right there, looks like it's about a foot and a half.
Foot and a half, okay.
And we'll spec that right out in the drawing, so it's easier, and if we can, I mean, I know you live, we can sit down and I can show you
Sure.
if there's anything specific.
Okay. There's a hydrant and a light at the top of that road.
Right, yeah,
I'm not
right
sure,
there,
yeah.
there's already a hydrant there.
Any trees, I don't know if this is right in
form to ask this, but any trees coming down as a result of the changes?
Yes, after Dean's property, about where your property line is and my property line is, in order to construct the rest of the roadway, we'll be cutting trees in that area, not to mention the lot.
On your property?
Yes.
How many trees?
On my property? Not sure.
Okay.
Many of us in the way of the road.
Well, the
Yeah.
road, yeah,
It's
on
narrow
the
there.
road, wherever we need to construct the road.
But we're following the road, so it'll be minimal.
Okay.
Right now, most of it's scrub brush on either side of that path as it is.
Most of it is, yeah. Not all of it, so, and I understand that you're trees, but it's just an interested neighbor in the environment.
It's simple enough to knock.
Oh, Andy's talking about the lot itself, and we don't have a plan. at this
You mean
point,
for
so,
where the
yeah.
house is going?
No, I'm asking the impact of the road to the trees, how you handle your
Oh.
house and your landscaping.
Oh, just that easement
It's up to
area.
you.
Just the 14 wide, we'll end up cutting it probably 18. The trees.
Relative to the discussion you had, what is the distance from the edge of the road to the stone wall existing?
Over there? 6 feet?
No,
I think it's wider than
No?
that, isn't it?
no. I would say narrower than that.
4, maybe 4?
Could be less.
That's where that driveway used to go, where you had a driveway cut in there?
You're talking about the road today and the wall along my
Yeah.
property.
4 or 5 feet.
That wide. In most-
Where I'm leading with this, and the concern is, if you develop a swale in there, is there any concern with the fact that swale could wash out some and undermine that stone wall?
No,
You've got 3 feet from the road to the wall at the top,
Yeah.
over there.
and it's his wall.
Yes, I understand that.
At the top, it's less
We'll
than that.
start at the edge of the, we'll start at the edge of the
Nothing.
road on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
put the swale in and the pavement. So it's gonna be within the developed area, not to the right into that.
But my point is, if that's, and if you can see this, I don't know if you can see this, but here's my road that's elevating up, here's my stone wall, my
Yep.
swale is gonna be in here.
No, it'll be to the right.
How wide is the
Other
swell?
side.
Right, it's like 2 feet.
And you have an extra foot most of the,
But no, what we're talking about is the existing driveway right now is about 16 feet. We're talking a 14-foot road, so if we hold the left-hand side, the 2 feet is within the pavement.
I understand.
So
if
you're
it-
telling me this edge of the swale will be more
Will be
space
over-
between that and the
Will
wall?
be that way.
Well, that would be good, because you see what the way I was picturing, you can see why.
We're not encroaching off the pavement now, we're actually, the
closer
swale
you-
will be in the pavement.
The closer you get to the wall with the swale,
Absolutely.
the more chance that you can wash out and undermine the wall.
Yep.
If there's 4 feet and you're adding 2, and the swale's 2 feet wide, you're gonna maintain that 4-foot width.
Yep.
I don't know how much water it takes to impact the wall from 4 feet away, but I think it's a very good question. At the top of the drive, as it meets hillside, there is no room between the drive and the wall. So you might get 2 feet, but actually, as I say, 2 feet is really 1 foot if you're expanding, if you're taking the road down by 2.
We'll take a
I
better
assume
look
it's
at that.
a foot on either
Like I
side.
said, there's a whole new concept that just came up. We'll
Okay.
take a look at it and where we can push it, we'll push it. We'll shift it over a little at the front. That's gonna maintain or help you in that direction.
Okay.
But like I said, this is a new, this just came up.
Okay. The
There
second.
will be a new plan, which you will get a chance to comment on in detail, but letting them know what your concerns are is useful.
There's not any room to turn around a fire engine in Mr. Dean's driveway.
Okay.
It'd be a small fire engine.
But there will be enough turnaround room when they're through.
Very well.
Okay, who else?
I'm Scott Swanson, live at 303 Hillside. And I think my question really pertains to the process going forward, because we moved in 4 years ago, and there was at least no knowledge of any of this given to us at the time. So the first official knowledge was, there was a meeting tonight. So my concern is, how does it unfold going forward?
Well,
Because I think it may have affected our interest in the property to begin with.
Well, the litigation was ongoing and concluded fairly recently with a judgment. And if you didn't know about the litigation, would have been difficult. I mean, you weren't entitled to notice that there was ongoing litigation. It would have been obviously helpful if you had known. But there was no requirement of anyone to tell you.
Really?
No. Unless you were buying the property that was being litigated.
So if you're buying a property next to a property that's potentially going to change dramatically and is in litigation, there's no
Well, but
process.
assume there was no litigation, there was just a driveway. I mean, there was always a chance that someone will decide to develop it.
Not according to everyone we asked.
Well, exactly, but you didn't ask the right people because they could have told you that development was afoot. In any event, the process will be they're going to create a revised plan meeting all the requirements of what's known as a definitive subdivision plan, and they're going to call it an 81Y plan. And this hearing is they're going to file it with the town clerk. They're going to file it with the town planner. And a week before the hearing continues, and we probably should have them file a number of copies so that people can take a look at it, and then we will continue the hearing and see what people think about it.
Has it been signed off by conservation already, or is that down the road?
No, once it's approved, conservation will get a crack at it. But we want to be minimalist as much as possible.
You want to be what?
Minimalist.
In other words, as little impact on the wetlands in the areas as possible.
And I think you made a statement that I couldn't hear about safety signed off, fire department signed off, I just didn't hear
No,
what you
no one
said.
has signed off yet.
Okay, so
And,
do they need to review
We will
this?
want the fire department to be satisfied that they can get their engines in good order and get them out once they're no longer needed.
Okay. Is there any other groups that have to look at it? Police, safety, health, anybody?
Well, all the engineering is going to be reviewed by the DPW.
Yeah, I don't think there's any requirement for health.
They're going to do the water system and the drainage. They're going to look at the drainage and ensure that's in order.
Eddie reminded me that the Board of Health will look at the septic system.
Right. And the landscaping along the street, if any, is going to be shown on the final plan. You know, trees, whatever, may be planted.
And that'll be a hearing back here again?
Yes.
And then what's this process from there going forward?
Well, once the board votes, they presumably will, let's be positive, it will approve the plan, and it will be filed with the town clerk, and there will be an opportunity for any person who so desires to go litigate. And I laugh because this litigation has been going on for a long, long time.
Do you know why that is?
I do know. I know exactly why.
Can you tell me at all? Just out of interest?
Yes. Initially, Mr. Bosworth came in asking for a subdivision.
In which year? 2003, I think?
When was it?
2001?
2001. Asking for a subdivision on which he showed one lot. And it was determined that the definition of subdivision is division of a parcel into at least 2 lots. And so what he was proposing was not a subdivision. And therefore, he could not take advantage of the subdivision control law. And in Milton, the only way you can get a street approved is by using the subdivision control law. So he was in a pickle. The matter was litigated, and it was resolved
He
under...
came back to us. The one in 2001 or 2002. I can't remember if he was, I wasn't on the board yet, so I
Oh,
don't
it
know.
No,
didn't-
then we came back in 2007.
You came back to us in 2007.
That
It was
was-
after that he litigated
81
for 81Y. Yes.
It was then determined that there was an answer. And that answer is General Laws Chapter 41, 81Y, which says if someone makes a mistake in creating a subdivision, then the person who ends up holding a lot resulting from the mistake gets to correct it through the use of General Laws Chapter 41, 81Y. And the land court has said that's the way to go, and has given the planning board its marching orders to process this 81Y plan, which we are now doing. Is that?
Alex, am I correct in that this is the first case ever,
I believe so.
ever, using 81Y?
It could be. I don't think Mr.
So
Sheffield will be able to come up with any.
So Charlie,
It's definitely the first 81Y plan ever, and that the planning board has left open the question of whether there might be any kind of overburdening of the easement. Sorry, the land court has left open the question of whether there might be any overburdening.
I believe that question was answered.
That was decided.
That question was answered by Judge Piper, that we wouldn't be overburdening.
Well,
the easement.
I mean,
He did not, he left that open.
it was an open
It was
question,
nothing to
but
do.
my own view is that that's, if anyone wants to litigate that, it isn't going to be me.
So just back to the process again, where does the Conservation Committee come in?
After we approve the plan, it's
Okay.
going to go to the Conservation Commission for their review. Right?
The reason it's going back to the Conservation Commission is because they've changed the road. Once they change the road and they change the footprint, they have to go back and amend
Right.
the order of conditions.
Right.
We
Whether
were
it
already
be-
provided an order of conditions on a previous.
You were provided in 2007, which expired in 2010.
Yeah.
So you can't go back and...
No, we can't. We have to apply.
You have to
He's right.
reapply, but it's also a different road, so therefore, it's a different application. So they have to file with conservation, so they'll go through all of these drainage numbers. They'll look at the grass swales, they'll see how the water meets the existing wetlands. And it makes sense for them to file after they get the approvals of the road here. To go and try to do it concurrently, if this board all of a sudden takes a left turn and makes the road wider for some reason, that would affect the conservation hearing. So it's better to finish this,
first.
go to them.
Okay?
Yeah, I would make a recommendation that in the future, if there is litigation, that it should be public knowledge for people buying property. That
All I can
seems
say is
fair.
the Hillside Neighborhood Association had full knowledge of this litigation.
It's actually was fairly
Well, you don't-
well known.
This was very, very, very well-known litigation.
You don't meet the Hillside Association until you buy the property.
Well, the broker,
The realtor selling didn't
the
know,
realtor should
and the
have
lawyers involved didn't know. At least they claim they didn't, so.
I
Just-
don't know how that information would be promulgated beyond that it was reported in the papers. I don't know how else. I don't know how the planning board would know who's buying property to say, hey, wait a second, because the litigation was against the planning.
Well,
board.
maybe everyone said there's no way it's gonna happen. Maybe that was, they
Or-
said that
or-
it cannot happen, so maybe that was, and that may
Well-
have been the problem.
You can always check with Town Hall, see, and find out what's going on at Town Hall.
well, it
My
not,
lawyer made a look through and
not
didn't see
not
anything
easily,
supposedly.
but I think it's too bad, but,
Yeah, I don't disagree that it's too bad. I just don't know how else.
but we think that
Yeah.
what we think is what we're trying to do here is make it so that you are reasonably pleased.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, I'm Ashley Krasinski and I live at 5 Stonehill Lane. And I just had a couple quick questions. One was, once this driveway and everything gets paved, beyond the pavement, like where it ends, does anybody else have, like the way that this came with your land and everything, does anybody else further than that have access to pave further back and continue on?
That is a question that I don't know the answer to.
Would the other
On the street, 900 foot.
That's right. I mean, we do have a 600-foot
600 feet.
dead-end street limit, so they wouldn't be able to, and how long is this street?
This is just under.
Just under, so
Just
they
made-
might be able to pave 10 feet.
Okay, so this doesn't look like it's gonna connect further
No,
back into the
no.
woods or anything?
No, they'd have to go all the way to Harlan Street.
Okay. Question number 2, and I don't want to harp on the drainage because I know that was already discussed and I completely understand now what you drew earlier and kind of showed. But my question about drainage actually goes further back. So I understand where the existing road is, how it's going to work. But then we just talked about having like a T and all of that. How would the drainage, my only concern is I live on Stonehill Lane, so pretty much directly, we'd be eye to eye, like on below you on that picture. And right now with the current road and even just that dirt, like horse path, it all comes down and kind of goes over our stone wall and fills our yard in the spring, and then fills our basement. So currently we already have a problem, and that's even the nature taking it in. So I was worried when I heard that would be paved in a T. Does that type of drainage system you're talking about continue all the way to the end, or is that just where it's graded down?
The grades aren't going to change on that gravel path, other than paving on top of it. So those grades are not going to change much at all. So there aren't going to be any grading impacts to your property.
Okay.
So I can't say that we're alleviating your problem.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to change any of the grades. And
But where your pavement will still have that, how you said it kind of is going to angle to the left? Will that continue?
No, the other way. It's going to angle to the right.
To the right.
Away
To the
from
right,
you.
looking up?
away
like-
from you, and then it'll be taken in catch basins and treated.
All the way
So-
down to the house?
All the way down to the
Okay, that's what I
property,
wanted to say.
yes.
Does it end
So a
at, like-
portion of what you're being impacted now will probably actually go away, because we'll be taking it to the right-hand side of 333.
Okay.
But I know your property and I know the problem back there, and a lot of that is that lower wetland behind your house that Mr. Dean owns. A lot of that water goes, that's why it's wetlands. A lot of that water sits right in there. There's not a lot we can do about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to see if it was,
We're not
We can't
exacerbating.
make it
we can't make
faster,
it-
with
No, we
with
can't
the-
make it worse on the calculation. That's why the engineering will be reviewed by the town engineer.
Okay. And can you just point where the T was? I couldn't see where that T you talked about.
Right in there.
Oh, right past where your driveway kind of breaks to
Where it
the,
starts to come back down.
to the right, I guess.
A little further that
A little
way.
further down.
Alex, one of your comments was that you're not going to have more of an impact. As you flatten out the area to put in the house, you will have more impact on her property because the sheet flow will now, instead of catching in the trees that are here, since the trees won't be there, it will be coming in this direction. Also, you have catch basins coming down here that'll be putting water down into this area.
Well, we don't know how we're gonna grade the lot yet, so I can't agree to that statement. What I'm talking to is the impact that their driveway is going to have on Ms. Krasinski's property. The property itself, the grading plan has not been determined
For the house.
for the house.
For the house, but whatever that grading plan is, it is pushing it in that direction
Well,
because of the amount
that
of
whole hill pitches down that way.
Right. So, but you're making it seem like, oh
Pre-
no,
post-development
what
won't
we
be
do
greater.
won't have any effect. What you do up here will have that effect on her. It will be pushing more towards that roadway.
Not the driveway.
Not the driveway, but the development itself.
Well, we were discussing the driveway. Now,
She's asking about the whole development.
well, the grading on the lot itself has not been determined. You're not going to change the flow of that hill from all the way up to the Tillotson's property, all the way down to the pond. It's always going to flow that way.
Right, but you're going to attempt to help it go in that direction, not straight out to the pond. If you're trying
What
to help what
direction?
she's doing, you're trying to push it to the further corner, not push it down into the gravel in here. As you flatten out in here to put in a house,
you're putting water into here. There's nothing out here right now, so the water is going in that direction.
I can't see any point in record.
You're talking about putting the house right here. Here's the house.
Yep.
So you've cleared this piece here, you've flattened this piece out, you've flattened in here. This is going this way. You flattened this out. We know that this is going in this direction.
It's all going in that direction.
It's all
now.
going this way. Right, so you're trying to take and bring it this way, not this way.
When we grade that end of the property, yes.
When you said there would be catch basins,
There's a treatment,
retention pond or something?
well, there is a detention basin on that plan, right, Jim?
On the old plan.
On the old plan.
That exists?
There's none on the new.
No,
it doesn't exist
there's
now.
nothing exists now.
Oh, so you're gonna create a retention area for the swale
We
and catch
have-
basins?
In this area here, the swale discharges, there's check dams along the swale that's gonna slow the water down. And then there's a treatment, it'll go into like a storm scepter or a pop separator. And to drop any silt that does get through that side, and then it'll get discharged into the wetlands. So it's gonna be cleaned, the final clean will be in this area here, and that's where the goes into the structure.
It'll be dumped into the wetland.
Yep.
Even
So
though
the
that's...
wetlands will be seeing more water than they
No.
typically do.
No,
It's the same water now.
it'll just be cleaner.
But you're catching all the water the length of the road and the swale and bringing it to that point.
It pretty much does that
It
now.
all runs
what
down
you're-
now.
No, you're concentrating.
What you're pointing at,
Like I said, when you see all the calcs, you'll see pre and post development, we can't,
Yeah.
peak flows won't change.
what you're pointing at are the isolated land subject to flooding. Within, those are the wetlands flags that you've already had accepted.
Like I said, Jimmy's got the design, it's just, let us put it on the plan, and it's easier to explain when we have everything in front of you. Like I said, this was a concept.
Okay, who else?
My
Yeah.
last comment, it's more of a public request than a question to you, but I just wanted to say it, so my one chance to say it to you is, of course, our favorite part about, even Stonehill, it's a development, but everybody in that property left some of those big, huge trees between even the houses that were close together, so you can't even see your next door neighbor. So it was more just a public request to see if, when you're, I know it's your lot, you do anything you want with it once you're there, but to maybe try to leave some of the sight lines, some of that natural woods on the side of it, so it can kind of maintain that look of the land back there, where even when the houses are close, there's definitely a visual buffer of real big trees, not just like, neighborhood landscaping. So it's more of a request from me personally, and I'm sure some of the other local
Well, we're not looking to
neighbors.
change the integrity of the neighborhood.
Yeah, of course not.
So-
I know, but you know how once you get, there's one particular round recently that I noticed that, they took out some of the really, really big ones, and a couple of them would have helped, not right where that is, but you see something like that, and you're like, oh, I wish some of them could have kept the sight line or something of more trees. So
Yeah,
just a
understood.
request, but I understand it's your property.
Understood.
Thank you.
All right. Who else? When are we continuing this to, Bill? How long do you need? Month?
Redo our calcs. What's this September hearing? I mean, we have to have this in.
I think that, the vote, if you get it in within, 2 weeks, yes. you need
2 weeks
to
is
get
not
it
gonna
in.
happen.
What?
2 weeks, there's no way 2 weeks is gonna happen, so.
So what?
We're gonna need to prepare the whole
Let's
package
do
and
it.
everything. and do stuff
I'm
on it.
just saying that so that Bill can then submit the thing around.
Yep.
And hopefully we can, by the time the next hearing, have heard back from some of the people. So in September, first meeting in September, is that right?
It's probably gonna be the
September
meeting that will be able to get everything, because you're talking, it's gonna be about a month, so now you're talking the middle of August. And then you're 2 weeks
You
after
need
that.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
September 13th.
Okay. Anytime.
This, I have nothing on this one yet.
All right, let's give them
5
the
o'clock?
number one out of the box. 6:45?
6:45,
September
13.
13th at 6:45 here in the Carroll Blue conference room, unless we can get the Council on Aging, which we'll try. Maybe.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. And we look forward to
Spoke
seeing
to
you in
Jim Milton,
September.
and I asked him to send me the, and he said he'd check with you first. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. The Milton Hill project.
Bring that with you, Charlie. Go ahead. Take
Right out the door like that, Bernie, I'll...
What, he folds it up, I'll sit down here. It's gonna be a good neighbor.
All right, Mr. Corcoran, why don't you tell us about 36 to 50 Elliott Street?
All right. If we give you a stick, you can just plug that in and we need to set up a projector. We can do either. We have some, let me introduce myself again, Ned Corcoran on behalf of the Sullivan family, the proponents for the redevelopment of 36 and 50 Elliott Street. I'm joined by Donnie Garrity, who is one of the project architects, and Nancy Farrow and Jim Sullivan, two of the young adult Sullivan children who are leading the development. And when we were here last time, we're going to have to set up.
Want to say that?
Yeah. We're focused on two, I think, remaining issues. One was stormwater and drainage, and there was an ongoing discussion with Joe Lynch and his staff and a consulting engineer who was hired by Mr. Lynch to review the storm water and drainage issues. We had a very productive meeting yesterday at the DPW office. It is a fairly complicated site from a drainage perspective because even though it slopes generally to Elliott Street, it does in sort of a mounded way, so water actually drains in different. And we've come up with a plan that needs to be finalized and reviewed and approved by town engineers as to how water will be handled on different areas of the site. It'll be a multiple plan that will deal with it in multiple ways, not just a single point of handling stormwater. The second issue, and more particular, was the design of the facade of the building, the entryway, and the balconies. In particular, we have, I think, a stunning new design for the entryway itself that redirects the handicap access, introduces a stair element directly from Elliott Street, and really, I think, is a very attractive element, and I think it really engages. There's minor modifications to the balconies, not significant, and I'll let Donnie sort of show them in more detail when he's set up. But those were the two, I think, issues that remain in your, at least the technical review portion, and we're pretty confident at this point that we will have agreement from the engineering department that the stormwater and drainage system is acceptable, and therefore, and that by the 26th of July, which I think would be your next meeting, and we're hoping that this evening we'll have substantial concurrence that the modifications we've made to the Elliott Street side of the building meet your approval. So. And particularly the new treatment for the entryway meets your approval, it will require a minor modification to the variance application with respect to the setback from Elliott Street. So I would ask the board, if it likes what it sees, that it would, as part of your recommendation to the Board of Appeals, indicate your support for that minor modification. I don't have the exact distance, the change in the setback. I will have that for you on the 26th, but it's a couple of feet. It just changes the nearest point of the property line from that corner of the building that is closest to Adams Street to a point from the overhang of the entryway as it is now closer to the property line along Elliott Street.
The front property line yet, or the side?
The front yard. The front yard is Elliott Street. And right now, the request is for approximately 12 feet setback. And I think it would come closer to 10 feet. The building, the main element of the building doesn't shift closer, the foundation doesn't come closer. It's simply this one element that presents itself on the first floor only.
The entranceway.
The entranceway.
I thought the entranceway was further from Adams Street.
It is, but what we've done is we've sort of added some element to it that brings the sort of an overhang and stairway closer, so it addresses the street more directly. And I think, as you see, I think in a pretty elegant way. But that's the point that is now closer than the corner building.
Maybe, would you mind helping me out with some photos and stuff?
How do you make this smaller?
There's two things sliders. One of them makes it smaller, and one of them focuses it. There you go. I don't want to reel it in a little. Okay. And then if you could hit source search for me, I think it's that blue one maybe, and then hit that again, please. No, it's you're on the wrong one. Choose me on.
Need someone who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm not. No,
Go.
And then do you have yeah. Do you have a button on here?
F8.
FNFE?
Was this qualified at that time?
I'll talk that on the master plan, we have to come up with another.
Connor's singing over there, so it's okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Juliet. Nice.
you can use it too if you want.
All right. Okay. So this is now Elliott Street facade. The new element you can see up on the right-hand side with a stair there that comes straight off the sidewalk. You can see what the overhang and why it's now closer to the street than the setback in the corner. And then as we move to another image.
Well, the first one will be we've shown two options here. The first option is an open baluster for the balconies. The second option is just a half wall. So we'll just have, each view will have both options rendered. So the next image just shows them as a half wall.
Right.
And as we swing around, here's the that entrance piece again.
And the entrance piece now, you can see how we come out for the handicapped access. This comes down along the face and then back, and switches back. And we've created a circular area with a seating area that's really sort of I think responds to another request from the revitalization committee to engage the street with some physical presence. There was idea that we might have some benches, so this is a physical bench that's placed in an area that gives you an ability to step off, sit in a nice little area. And you can see how the entryway itself is covered, and with the street, the nice wide staircase leading up to it, sort of really makes a nicer presence and an introduction for that element to the street.
Here it is with the half wall here.
Right.
To tie the balconies in further with the building, we used the return on the eave line. We adjusted its slope, and at the moments of the balconies, we've extended it over to cover them to help engage these pieces and have them feel more connected to the building. We've also included a new fascia trim board that'll align with that second floor. It aligns with the balcony floor top. Another line that will connect the dots as these are attached to the building. It's the same thing that we've had on the second floor or the whole time. That's pretty much it.
So those are the changes, not significant with respect to the balconies. Obviously, we do have the options for the open and the half wall for consideration, but fairly significant change to the presentation to Elliott Street and the connection from the sidewalk itself.
Yeah, just a quick question.
Yep.
How are you going to dispose of the rainwater from the roofs?
They're going to run into leaders and down into the stormwater system and disposed of out into the town's stormwater system, so that all of the rain water is going to be captured and channeled so that it's properly handled. I'm sorry?
How wide are the balconies?
They are,
Which way do you mean, this way or?
Sorry, towards the street.
they're 6 feet.
They're still 6 feet.
Yeah. And the issue there, I double-checked with Donnie on that, is that because of handicapped accessibility requirements, they have to meet the radius requirements for, turning radius for a wheelchair. Minimum requirements 5 feet of free area, clear area to turn.
And on the ground floor, how much space is there between the base of the balcony and the stone wall? I'm interested in the amount of landscape that's going.
I think that's approximately 10 feet.
Okay.
It's a fairly wide area.
That narrowest point?
Yes. And we have, it's an older rendering of the landscaping plan that was done, so it doesn't, it's difficult in these types of renderings to address plantings with everything else. But you can see how the trees there, and then the landscape architect had done a separate rendering, which we have. I'm gonna pull it up. There, so you can see there's a fair amount of room between the back of the stone wall and the front of the building, and the idea is to plant with low shrubs and taller trees so that they really sort of present themselves first to you before you see the building. And we didn't really show that 2 weeks ago, but I think they make a difference in terms of what you see, how you see the building, because it's surrounded by some natural features that make a difference.
That's the landscape intention.
Yes, yeah.
Can you go back to the photo rendering?
He didn't show the balconies on that room.
No, he did not. This is an earlier landscape plan developed as the exterior of the building was being developed. Really, this has not been dropped into the newest plan, but the same intent.
Can you go back to the photo rendering that you're showing right now? Thank you. Just want you to look at that. And the balconies that are shown on that are the 6-foot depth?
Yes. And that's the balustered option.
Which, the balustered option create there's less mass to look at, but there's always the possibility of the storage issue.
Well, you're going to take care of that with the documents.
Exactly. So it's really a visual preference. I think personally I like that look better than the half wall, but I think different people.
I think the concern that was brought up was a valid concern about people storing things in the balcony.
Yeah.
Were you inferring that they take care of that by the lease agreements?
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I think the concern was brought up last meeting, lease agreement or not, people put things out there and take care of their data. That they can comply with the lease.
Well, remember they have similar lease agreement with Milton Hill House, and certainly the one site, admittedly, it was one sidewalk that we took. The balconies were very well maintained.
Yeah.
I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary.
If you close them in, the more junk they're likely to put in there.
That's also true.
The existing building is set back way off the street. You'd have to walk there to check it out.
But my point was more to the fact that clearly they're keeping on top of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so if they did it in one building, I would expect that they would do it in the other, since it's the same management team.
Who would enforce that?
Well, if it's in the variance as a condition, the building inspector could. Well, I mean, and the rental agent would also obviously do it, because the rental agent would be under threat of the building inspector coming and saying, you've got to enforce the variance, or we're going to take you to court.
I think also as a logical outcome, that a set of units, a building like this is almost a new neighborhood, and ultimately neighbors need to get along and respect each other. But you're right, I've been in a direct abutter to the existing Hill House now for over 20 years, and those balconies have been there. They've been well-maintained. The Sullivan family does a very, very good job of making sure that what they do is kept at a very high level. Their documents are carefully crafted, as I understand it, and I think their experience is such that they are well-maintained, and I think here, it's an important selling feature. it will generate higher rent. I think people will respect what they're doing, and certainly the lease documents. And we do have a draft of proposed development conditions that we're working on, and one of the clear issues that we're dealing with in the draft is responding to that issue of storage on the balconies, and that we are indicating that we would restrict storage to appropriate patio-style furniture. We prohibit bicycles, grills, similar items. And that would be a condition that would be enforceable. Obviously, the act of enforcing, no matter what set of documents that it's in, is timely and whatnot. But the fact that it's there and would run to the leases, I think, would give tenants pause before they would do something that would violate it for any length of time.
Well, plus it's in your client's interests as a marketing issue.
Exactly.
If they wish to rent those units out to people, it's in their best interest to make sure that the building is attractive as possible.
Right.
So from a sheer economic perspective,
Right.
they'll want to keep that maintained.
The existing building, the balconies open balanced from there?
They are there. You can see them up in the upper left. Those are, because that's concrete and steel construction, those balconies are cantilevered, and they are sort of steel grate, open.
And you go back to the current proposal when you get a chance, please.
What's that?
The current changes that you just made, if you can go back to those so we can see. Thank you.
Yeah, just one question. There's a lot of trim there. What's the products of the trim? A lot of maintenance potential.
We're proposing right now an AZEC material or something comparable, PVC trim board.
How do you plan for the clapboards?
Exactly. A mix between cement fiber, lap siding, shingle siding, panel board in some areas.
Mike, there's the open balances.
I stand corrected on the, they are enclosed. I apologize. That's properly depicted, and that's the, Ms. Farrow just corrected me on that.
You know, I like the open ballast. If it was my apartment and I was looking out the sliding doors, I'd like it like that. But I think the half wall really addresses what I believe still could be an issue. You know, I understand that the building that exists there today, that some of the people that lease there are very long-term. I don't know that you could, be certain that that would be the case in the new building. And I know I was a young guy one time that had an apartment. It just, the half wall would, I think, address the issue of that the Restoration Committee brought up, Revitalization Committee brought up about people storing things out there.
I think the other advantage of the half wall is right now that's a very unified look. And if what you're looking for is something that presents a consistent image, the ability to have different type, because each person's going to have their own type of patio furniture, that's understandable. That keeps it a unified presentation from the street level, because the different types of patio furniture will be behind that top wall. I agree with Mike that if it were my apartment, I'd probably prefer the open one. But then again, if I were just going out in a scruffy t-shirt and jeans to have a cup of tea, maybe I'd prefer to be hiding behind that wall.
Sure.
So, I think the half wall probably would work better in this situation, especially given that the building behind it also has the half wall.
My view is that the half wall is far less aesthetically pleasing than the open concept, and the people inside, sitting in their living room, are going to look out at a half wall. It's going to impact their view. It's going to reduce the branch, and I don't like the half wall at all.
And what would the material be of that half wall? You're not going to get a PVC piece of wood that big.
I could be persuaded on open balusters. I'm just needing some of the reasons.
We'd probably do some sort of, we'd have to figure out that detail exactly,
I just
but
think that people sitting in their living room looking out at a half wall are going to be very, very sad with the planning board putting up that barrier.
The only thing that comes to mind on the flip side of the coin again is, and it might have been the revitalization committee that pointed out, this is kind of like the welcoming point of Milton as you're coming from Dorchester. And I can just picture this building with, and I know you can put in the lease with odd things out there like grills or bicycles or what have you. And I've often commented that no matter which direction you enter in Milton, you know when you're in Milton. I'd hate to think that, you know, we're going to blend more into Dorchester than existing Milton.
I'd say bicycles are the least likely item to be on there. You can have a bicycle storage space within the building itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the least likely. Grills, maybe.
I don't think the
you know.
grills are, I think they
I don't think
may be
they're
a
allowed.
fire.
Yeah, exactly.
You can use
So-
electric. Yes, you can.
Right.
Yeah, I think they're not, if they, you know, they cause odor, you know,
Yeah.
get, you know, smoke fumes blowing in and out of different units, I
It's
think.
the interior aesthetics versus the exterior aesthetics. I mean, no matter what you put on there, whether it's a pleasing thing or a displeasing thing, if you have the half wall, the building looks very uniform and nice.
It's a
Like Emily
high-
pointed out, furniture, anything kind of breaks it up and kind of makes it look sporadic, but certainly from the inside, I agree with you. Aesthetically, I'd rather have the balusters, but
The worst looking buildings in Boston are the West End development with those half walls, which are the most unsightly.
All peeling.
Well, no, I mean, even when they were brand new, they were
Yeah, all
awful,
rusty.
and the people inside are just trapped, they get this little bunker-like view out of
But we don't want
there.
to give anybody a bunker like you. I will argue against my point on keeping it uniform, by the way. I'm happy to argue against myself on occasion, which is this, what, with patio furniture on it, having the open wall give the front a more lively appearance. So your choice is, do you want the uniformity of the half wall, or do you want the liveliness of the different elements that the residents will bring to it in terms of patio furniture? Plants, I certainly noticed on the current Milton Hill house, there are plants that look very nice on the balconies. So there would be much more signs of life.
I'm not hard on anything, but
Yeah.
and this is, it seems to me almost like a small point, but if it was condos, I'd be more confident that the condo board would be, like you say, they'd be in their best interest to make sure that it's maintained properly. I just feel as, whereas apartments, it's going to be difficult, but apparently they have done a good job in the existing facilities, so.
My comment to that, Mike, would be that the average tenancies in the existing Hill House are 9 years. They're expecting essentially the same here. They own and maintain high-end apartment developments in Brookline, Wellesley, Milton, and some other places, and they do it, and they do it well. And I think their record is consistent across their properties. And I think, you know, they've got almost 20 years of direct ownership of the existing Hill House, and in my own sense of my own 20 years as an abutter, 20 years of goodwill with me and my neighbors as to how they've maintained that property. And I think that they're going to continue that with respect to this new development. They've done a lot to listen and respond over a long period of time, and I think they will take that last little bit very seriously in terms of how they maintain and operate this facility.
You know, you could discourage the grill if the owner provided an indoors, you know, like a Jenny air type grill where people don't have to go out and put a grill on their porch, they can grill in their kitchen, so.
Will there be public outdoor space where the community as a whole would have a grill? I know some places like that and some places don't, so.
Well, I mean, it's got a very public street front
I was thinking on the other
on the
side. but
other side. I'm not sure that the site generally
I don't think there's
lends
enough
itself
room, yeah.
for that. One of the bits of tension, for example, with some of the abutters has been to make sure that there's no opportunity for access in and out.
Right.
And as someone who's been there as long as I have next door, there's really nothing on the property that would draw us in, other than the restaurant that was there.
Right.
But since then, there's been nothing there. And I think that this sitting area down here is certainly, because it's proximity to the sidewalk, is certainly there and open and inviting to people to come in and sit as sort of a quote-unquote public space. But I think for the most part, the rest of the property doesn't lend itself.
Right. And that makes more sense anyway, because it's sheltered from the existing abutters, that it really is part of the public area, rather than the more private area to the back. I do like the stairs coming up from the street into the entrance. I think that's a huge change in addressing the public frontage.
You might want to heat them just because it is on the north side of the building.
Heat the stairs?
Just because the ice situation along the front in the winter without really getting any sunshine could be significant.
I always wanted a heated driveway. Push that button and no more shower.
Well, that's the owner's responsibility.
It is. It is indeed. But
So,
there are ways of designing the building to minimize the ice buildup.
That's certainly an issue that we're addressing with the engineering department, but the Sullivans have a history of maintaining the public sidewalk there, and will continue to do that. They plow it, they sand it, salt it, they make sure that it's safe. They know that their tenants will be walking out those front doors in one direction or the other towards one of the tea stations or the restaurant.
Again, it's in their economic best interest to keep that maintained. So whether it's getting people to rent those units or keeping their tenants from suing them for failure, I mean, it's just simple good business to have that maintained.
All right, well, what else? We're going to hear from a few people before we decide whether we like it.
Okay.
And why don't you, people who make comment, look at, see, because we're going to turn the lights back on and we're going to rejoin the table. Okay, does the board, the board has made a number of comments. Who would like to comment on this proposal who hasn't done so already? Yes, Mr. Jackson. Everyone is waiting on tenterhooks to determine whether you like the closed balconies or the open balconies.
Peter Jackson from Capon Street. I'm delighted with the redesign. I think creating an architectural element for an entrance has really successfully addressed the issue of the relationship of the building from the street. It also encourages people in the building to come out to Elliott Street and to use our two commercial districts in that area. Putting a real architectural element, it's not the back of the building anymore, which it appeared for so long. So I think that was a very successful solution in the way they handled the handicap access. So I'm delighted with that. On the balcony issues, I have to agree with Mr. Whiteside. The most dramatic feature of that entire site is the view to the Neponset River and to the north. And if you're sitting in the living room, entertaining friends or something, and not, maybe it's not the season to be out on the balcony or whatever, but when you're sitting there and you look out and you see a blank wall instead of this marvelous view toward the river and toward the hillside rising on the other side of the river, I think you've lost the most dramatic feature of that entire site. So I have to vote for the open railings, the balusters, and I'm not as concerned as a lot of people that there will be a lot of junk on the balconies or whatever. I think the management can deal with that. And I just think taking advantage of the dramatic riverside, hillside site would be lost with half walls. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, hearing none, let's, what does the board think in general?
I
Yay?
like it, I like it.
Yay?
Yeah,
Yay?
absolutely.
Yay? Okay, everyone in general likes it.
That is easy.
So let's determine whether the open,
I'm happy.
open,
Open is good.
open, I think that maybe we can agree that open is the way to go.
I agree with the chairman.
Ed?
I agree with the open, Al, but I want to also see them somehow try to make the columns disappear, or darken the columns. They show them in white. And it just seems to be glaring at us rather than.
Well, they're going to try and tie it, architect, you're trying to tie it into the colors that are on the existing building. They're not going to be a different color, are they?
You mean from the proposed color scheme?
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll tie in, right now we're rendering them as the same color scheme as the trim boards and that.
The cream color, more or less?
For the posts, or for the balcony. The
You don't like
balusters, the balusters were showing darker.
I don't think they need to.
It just seems to be too bright to me. I think darker would be better, that's my opinion, but.
But after a few years of soot, you'll be.
Plus, the computer
You'll be
rendering
happy.
isn't always perfect, so given the darkness of the rest, it may be rendering is a little bit whiter than it will actually be.
I think black would be perfect, but it's just.
Okay, open or closed, Ed?
Open.
Okay. Mike?
I think, again, the revitalization committee, this was first come up, I think it was a good point, but I think Mr. Cochran, on behalf of the Sullivans, has addressed it enough that, are we able to put any kind of language in there where we see the lease agreement?
Well, no, we're going to suggest the Board of Appeals that they have to make sure that the balconies, make it, exactly.
And in that case, yeah.
Okay, all right, so Ned,
I'm moving and I want it open.
put something together for next time, and we'll see if we can't get a written recommendation to the Board of Appeals.
Great. Happy to do that.
Right? Is that what the board, is that the board's pleasure?
Absolutely.
Could you do one in color showing darker columns, please? See what it looks like? Thank you.
My daughter wanted purple. Is that okay?
All right.
That takes it after the father.
So, yeah, that's, I agree with Mr. Jackson, actually, that it looks pretty good. It looks good. So, nice job. See you in a couple of weeks?
Yes. Do we have a time?
26th, what time?
They come back on the 26th.
We can close this hearing just so that we can be more flexible.
Do we close it? I mean, we haven't actually done the site plan approval. Is this an actual formal hearing?
We're gonna do
Yeah.
materials.
We have to do the materials, we have to do the actual site plan approval.
Okay, fine.
So
We'll
we'll
keep
close
it
it.
open. Give him a time, Bill.
He closed his computer down too early.
Tell them outside you can move on to.
Sure.
Assisted
Now
living?
we have to announce the time though.
I'll come back with that time.
Okay.
But you can move on to your next.
Assisted living. Assisted living with Paul Sullivan.
Did we set a time? I'm sorry.
I'm getting.
All right, now, on assisted living, we
Yes.
have a problem.
We have a new plan too.
Do we have a new plan?
We do have a new plan. It was in our yellow folders.
It's in our yellow folder?
Yep, right there.
Oh,
It's a new initiative that Jean has started to keep us more organized.
oh, okay.
That's Wolcott, and that should be, there you go, that's it, it's in the
All
sheet.
right, we have a new plan.
New plan.
Thanks, guys.
Did you have it, did you get a time, Bill?
Sorry.
There's a new plan in your yellow folder for the assisted living. It looks like this.
In the yellow?
In the yellow folder, yeah.
Well, so their driveway would come out on the access road, I guess.
No, they're wanting to go off Randolph, I believe. I thought I saw a text to that effect somewhere. Yeah, it's somewhere. You got it.
They're going to access off the...
I don't think that that's a winner.
Well, we can chat with them about it.
Okay.
And you're getting caught.
We don't think that the access to Randolph Avenue is a winner. We think it's too steep, it's too narrow.
Oh, hold on. You don't think it's a winner. We haven't actually discussed it
I'm
yet.
sorry. I don't think it's a winner. It's too steep, it's too narrow, and it joins a very busy street in a very dangerous way.
Just briefly, can I explain a little bit about what we did here prior to getting into that conversation?
Before you do that, Bill, do you have a time?
No.
Okay, so
When are you going to have a time?
131 is at 7. You've got the other two pieces before that, so, sorry. We just have to finish off one before we start the next.
Eight o'clock.
8 o'clock?
Thank you.
8 o'clock.
We could go 7:30.
What do you mean
Let's do
we could go
7:30?
7:30?
7:30.
Yeah, 7:30.
7:30, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Tell us more.
Okay, so, first of all, I apologize I was not available at the last hearing. But as a result of that hearing and the hearing prior, we've done a little to try and improve the layout, as you can see, mostly concerning parking and setbacks. I know if you're looking up from Randolph Street on the right side of the building, that was, I believe, the biggest concern as it relates to setbacks. And we've increased that. Actually, all four sides have been increased. We were able, following meeting with conservation, filing the INRAD, meeting them on the site, they approved the wetland lines that is reflected here. We were able to move some of the parking across the right-of-way, which I think was another concern that was expressed to us. So I think the site flows better, works better. Part of that is continuing to come off of Randolph Avenue, which is our preference. But I think some of these other changes,
Why do you prefer to come off Randolph? That would be helpful.
3 reasons.
Okay.
Economics, the timing, and marketing.
Okay.
This new driveway, as it exists, I think it's about a 10% grade. I think we can get it down to an 8% grade or so,
Right.
as you see this, which would force us to, where the driveway forks off to the right is where the ledge, kind of the outcropping is. That would have to be brought down. The two-story house would be gone, giving us a clear line of sight to the building, which is very important to us from a marketing perspective, from an employee perspective. We get a lot of our business that way, signage, etc. I think that's, not to mention the financial, so I'll get to the economics. Financially, we have the two-story home, the two-family home under agreement. We intended to use that as the frontage. Now we're talking about improving a town access road that we had never intended on doing. It would be burdensome. And lastly, the timing. I think we've mentioned this before, our timeline's tight, and that, we'll have to end up in front of conservation, and I just feel like it'll drag on, the selectmen, so on and so forth. There's just a number of reasons why it's our hope to continue coming off Randolph.
Would you accept a right turn only onto Randolph? Because that is a very busy road for coming out for a left turn.
Apologize, this is my boss, Ernie. So
Welcome.
it's not something that we had talked about, that's why I'm turning around to see.
That's fair enough, and you don't have to answer now, but yeah, okay.
I think
I'm thinking about it.
Similar to,
I think that'd be something we'd be amenable to.
Okay.
to Fuller Village?
Yeah, Fuller has restricted
104 units
access.
are in Fuller.
Yeah. They allow a right turn in and a
Sure.
right turn out, but no left turns
I think that would
in.
work fine, and
Okay.
I think, I would also like to reiterate, this building, despite being a relatively large size, does not generate a lot of traffic. It's not something we've gone into in great detail. We don't have an official traffic report at this time, but we do have general statistics, and I can even, why don't I pass that around, just showing what kind of trips generated and that sort of thing.
Well, it's not always just the trips generated, it's also the safety of the people coming out, especially
We
if...
appreciate that, and
yeah.
I think the right turn only is a good suggestion.
Yeah.
But people are going to be coming in from Dorchester and Milton, and they're going to take
It
a
works
left
at-
turn.
It works at Fuller.
Onto Fuller, onto Canton Ave, or Fuller onto, what's the side street there?
Fuller onto,
Brush Hill Road.
Brush Hill Road, not
That's-
Brush Hill
that
Road,
doesn't-
Blue Hill Avenue.
The original-
Fuller onto Blue Hill Avenue, you're only, at the main entrance, you can make a right turn in, and coming out, you can make a right turn out, but you can't make a left turn in.
Do people even use that?
It's the main entrance to Fuller Village, yeah.
The other difference between Fuller Village and this is that's independent living. People that live there still
Right.
drive, whereas in this building, they don't drive. That's 130-something units, I think, in the initial phase
That's
of
the-
Fuller Village.
That's
And
a
the
good
traffic count at that point on
One more
138
thing.
is much higher than it would be at 28, I believe. So it just-
But 28 has the rush hour, is the problem, I don't know if you've ever tried to
Yeah,
go down 28 on rush hour, morning and evening rush
138,
hour.
I live up on Brusher Road, so I take
Yeah.
138 and traffic. can be-
Traffic's really, but what I'm saying is 28 is very similar.
Yes.
Randolph Avenue is 28, and the morning rush hour and the evening rush hour are high, which is great for you because you get people going by the business.
Yes.
But as far as a traffic perspective, we should probably look at what a right turn only would be
You've
for
got
that.
one lane of traffic in each direction on Blue Hill Ave.
Right.
This has 2 lanes of traffic in each direction.
But as you know, living off of it, people are coming down that super fast. I mean, it changes down to 40 miles an hour by the time it hits them, but
I know
many
our
people are not
engineers-
doing 40 miles an hour at that point. They're doing
I know
50.
our engineers have looked at this, and they liked the idea of the access road. The other one scared them quite a bit.
The Randolph one?
As it should. I mean, here you have a signalized intersection right next door to this thing, and you, because of timing and finances, say that you want to take the dangerous route, which to me is a non-starter.
I think it might be worth studying. I mean, you would have to actually do a traffic report on that one to see if it could work, because I know it looks great, there's 2 lanes of traffic, they'd be able to turn out, all of that, but given the speed, A, given the amount of traffic at the rush hour, and B, given the speed on the non-rush hours on that one, because coming down the hill, if you're coming from Randolph, say, you're flying down the hill, as people do, and people don't realize that the speed limit has changed, and they're just staying, they see the light coming down the hill, and I'm going to beat that light, and they're flying at that point. So,
The traffic that comes across on the other side of the access road, again, I don't know the name of the street.
Reed Street.
Reed Street, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason they put that traffic signal there. That doesn't see an extreme amount of traffic. I mean, that's not like you go to that light and you back up 5 cars.
It's people
Very seldom
turning
more than one
left
car.
onto there, yeah. It's
But I mean,
people-
there's a reason they put the traffic signal there.
Yeah,
And it wasn't relative to the volume of traffic.
I think they were trying to slow people down, basically. All 3 of those traffic lights have gone in down Randolph, and it's basically to slow people down.
And so
It sometimes
it's not
works.
even the danger of the people coming out of here, but it's the danger of the people coming down Randolph Ave.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just, again, it's not necessarily the access road as much as it is the fact
Yeah.
that you have a signal there, whether,
Well,
whatever road it was.
what are you saying? I mean, you have a signalized intersection, why not use it?
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
It's right next to you.
It's a state road.
I don't think your reasons are good ones.
And I think we appreciate your arguments. They make a lot of sense. And I figured I would just present my arguments about why I think this makes sense. And I understand if you disagree with me, but...
What I was getting at is the street I was speaking about.
Right, but if that was right turn only, I don't think a light would have been necessary.
Well,
And
I
it's
don't know,
not.
it's very minimal traffic. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
fear
you
that
got
if
the
you
old
came out on
Dunkin'
Randolph Ave, it would, I suppose it just wouldn't be designed properly, you wouldn't be able to do it, but
You wouldn't be able to do it.
you wouldn't be able to put another signal there.
No,
It just
too
would-
close,
It'd be too
yeah.
close, and it just wouldn't work. It just seems like, I agree with Alex, it just seems like you have a very appropriate situation with the traffic signal there.
If you don't mind, this is Frank Tamaranis, our engineer.
How you doing? I'm Frank Damaris with Sage Engineering. I'm the owner of Sage Engineering. We're the ones who put this site plan together. We're a design-build company made up of engineers, architects, and contractors. If I could just add a little bit more information about the intersection here. We are capable of bringing the access right now off the 33 private right-of-way down to 8%, which subdivision, from what I understand, your subdivision control law requires a minimum of 8%. So we are able to lower that grade along there, and I think that's very beneficial. There is current traffic that is coming outside of that right now, and this use, granted, having 80-plus units, it sounds like there's a lot of traffic to it. It's assisted living. What's the percentage of your clients have cars?
5%.
5%. There are people who visit too.
And there are 80 employees.
And there's employees.
Which on shifts.
Right, exactly. But it's not an independent living, it's not a condo, it's not an apartment complex, which have literally 4 times the volume of traffic that would go through here. The peak hour, I believe, it was, as they passed out, about 25 trips. 25 trips in the peak hour in the morning or in the evening. So it's not a very high quantity. I just wanted, for the record, so we all kind of have some barometer of saying, you know, it's dramatically less than what one would expect for this amount of units, because it's independent or assisted living, a lot of care. Only 5% of the residents have actual cars, and generally their parking lots are often. And the other thing I wanted to mention, having the light, you know, within, 1,000 feet, what that does, that light at that location will stop traffic. They have to accelerate to gain speed again, and by having the light in a close proximity will actually help this intersection, which, you know, we spoke with someone from Mass Highway about the curb cut and the different use, and they wouldn't, on a light of a 25 vehicle trips per hour, and the fact that there is current traffic there, so maybe it's an increase of maybe 10 trips per hour, which is very minuscule, and it wouldn't trigger another light, and it would be something that they would entertain. I just wanted to give you that more information. It is for my client, because I know how important this access is for this building, for the marketing standpoint of it, and how critical a role it plays. And I apologize for interrupting.
It's quite all right. For the zoning, having use of a signalized intersection means that we can write zoning which is tailored to this site. And if we don't say that, that removes an important factor, limiting factor, that the driveway will be served by a signalized intersection. To say it will be served by a substandard right-of-way. I say it's substandard because our general requirement is a 50-foot layout for a street, and this is 33, your turning radiuses at the end of it are not, they don't look right to me. Bill, are they right? They're not nearly what we require.
They're not, no, and it doesn't take into account the Peter Kelly's house that's on the corner there. I don't know, I have to give it back to the engineers.
The existing light wouldn't necessarily slow down the traffic because it's not on a regular sequence. It's triggered. It's on a loop detector. It's triggered infrequently.
So my feeling is that I'll write something up requiring use of the signalized intersection.
Unless, I mean, there's a couple of things that would help your case. One is obviously a traffic study.
Sure.
The other is, I think if you write the zoning saying that they have access to the signalized intersection, then as part of the process, we could determine whether or not we would require that use, but we can go there in a minute.
Whenever you say that, you know what's going to happen.
We're going to have a couple of discussions. The other thing that would probably help your case is I noticed you're predicting approximately 241 trips as your average weekday. It would be helpful to know what Horse Place Stables are. I don't know if they're still giving lessons, which would increase the traffic. Okay, so it'd be helpful to know what
we talked about
doing that
next week.
Yeah.
Trying to get someone out there, and someone from Frank's office actually
Yeah.
next week to do that, because
the other thing that would be interesting to know is, of course, there's a bus route along there, and the question would be whether or not some of your employees were traveling by bus and how that might affect the number of trips. So that would be useful as well.
Well, also how they get across the street after they get off on the other side. If they don't get off at they walk down to the signalized intersection.
Yeah, see, it's less than 1,000 feet. Encourages exercise.
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I fully support the access road intersection as the primary access. However, I think it's important for us to understand that the access road is not really an accepted public way. It's a road to a dump. I think it should be researched by somebody, Bill, exactly what rights this company would have to the road, and also whether the road is capable of handling first-class traffic. And I'm wondering whether it is or not. I don't think it is. So I think it has to be.
It would probably be reconstructed.
We have to do some research on that, and that's critical. But I favor that altogether over the 33-foot right-of-way.
I also think that we have to perhaps check with the Board of Selectmen before we go around promising access to their road, essentially.
Well, we don't promise it. This is something that you
But my point is,
would secure.
if we say in the zoning that they're required to use
Right.
it, as you're suggesting, and then the Board of Selectmen say,
They
we don't
can't,
think
it
so.
would mean they wouldn't qualify,
Well,
wouldn't
I
it?
think that's a little unfortunate for them, so I think we should check.
I don't think the Board
And I
of
think
Selectmen
Bill's-
would say that, would they?
Bill's hand is up. They might.
It's a good thing somebody already started that.
Yeah, nicely done.
I've had that informal discussion with the selectmen, I've had the informal discussion with the town engineer and DPW. So we have brought those things up, and everybody does point back and say the town's access road is the one that makes the most sense for this site. The other issue here is I do believe that those two houses beside the parcel that you're talking about and the next one over, one of them is a two-family, right?
the one we have in our agreement.
That's the two-family? What about the two beside it?
They're single-family homes.
Both of them?
Yes.
I know your driveway doesn't continue down, but I know that driveway does continue into the Ford lot. It says now a formerly Ford. That driveway
do you see his
continues
sketch
to-
starting to go down there? We discussed that they have access rights to their,
right,
and that would continue, whether it's reflected here at the moment
So
or
where
not.
that gray T is on the.
That's
cul-de-sac?
right.
It keeps on going.
So it would keep on going, and that would remain the same.
And another problem that I see is there's no sidewalk.
On the access road.
on the driveway as they
So if any
point
of
out,
their
so people
employees are
would be
coming by bus, yeah.
walking in the,
That is problematic, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, by them owning the parcel to the south, the two-family, they can easily widen that and provide more of a 50-foot right-of-way per se, and that sidewalk that you're asking for, you know, extending that area on there because they have ownership of that land. And then by also could shift the driveway access more into the center of that right-of-way and provide those wider curb cuts if the radiuses that you're looking for. I would want to leave them as small, for this use, leave them smaller because they don't have tractor-trailer trucks. They don't have large vehicles. Generally, the biggest vehicles they have are box trucks for food delivery. But that is an option up to some point before to kind of the main entrance of the facility. Then we could go back to 33 feet, whereas they don't necessarily need that width. Why we'd want to keep it at the 33 feet? Because the wider we make that right of way, the less land, buildable land they have due to setbacks off of that line, respectively. Thank you.
I think that's possible. I see you have your dumpster almost on top of the town of Milton's land, which I'm not sure is the way it should be. In other words, you don't think the town of Milton deserves the same sort of setback that the rest of it is getting. The 40-foot landscape area from the abutters doesn't apply to the town of Milton.
We could relocate the dumpster.
We can look into
There is a, I mean, but that's your delivery area in there, as I gather.
It
is.
And you've got a gate to the access road so that for emergency access, I take it, okay.
One other thing that Paul brought up, an error on this plan, is to increase the buffer. Do you want to explain
Sure.
that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we talked about earlier when we were waiting was they relocated the parking across on the other side of the road, and but we could move it up in front of the building, the parking spaces, and away from the residents on Randolph Avenue, because it's only a 100-foot buffer from the wetlands, and it's acceptable to construct a parking lot in that space.
I was wondering why you had the parking so
Yeah,
close to the
just for this
residence.
exercise, we kept it out.
Yeah,
Just to stay outside the buffer originally.
yeah.
Well, all the stuff right next to it seems to me we need a uniform setback from all lot lines. Because, you know, who knows what the town's going to do with this land, but in any event, people on the town's land don't have to feel like they're right on top of your development.
So we have a deadline of August 9th for the article to be in the warrant?
Yes.
So we need to figure out what we're going to do about this.
It probably won't be a fall town meeting.
There is a fall town meeting. October town meeting is already scheduled by
It
law
is
that we
scheduled, but they
passed.
may have a special later on
The
in
selectmen, they didn't
in the
mention
winter.
that.
Last night,
It was voted by town meeting that there would be, in May, that there would be an
Watch the
October.
selectmen's meeting
I
for last
understand
night.
that, but what I'm saying is
You
that
tell me.
there is a regularly scheduled town meeting as voted by the annual town meeting.
Watch the meeting.
All right, well, in any event, it may be that the August 9th, then maybe they have a December session and,
They're planning
This is gonna be interesting.
beginning of
It's a
June.
lot.
Watch it.
Huh?
Watch it.
so,
I won't have a chance to watch it, just tell
Why
me.
not? We'll get your
Because
take.
I'm
Next
writing up
ledger.
all your stuff for the master plan this weekend, come on.
Next ledger. Today's ledger.
I don't have the ledger.
well, buy one.
It's 50 cents.
Tedeschi's.
It's gonna be closed by the time we get out of
I
here.
guess that's right. Okay, it seems to me we're going to require setbacks from all lot lines, and what I'm going to write is something requiring use of the signalized intersection. Bill, you're going to go back and you're going to ask the people, is there anything they could do to make this a good intersection? with Randolph Avenue.
From the state?
No, just our department. Our department has said it's unsafe, and what did they say, Bill?
Have they said it's unsafe, or they have
They
said
said they had
it's
great
less than?
concerns about it.
They had concerns because of, one, the ledge to the,
Grading.
the ledge would be the grading, but the location of it, in between the block, especially when we have the signalized intersection right there.
If it was right turn only, do you think that would alleviate some of their concerns?
No.
I don't think right turn only, because people are gonna have to turn left to get into it. And there's no way they can, I mean, they go up Reed Street and down, I mean, how would they do that?
They'd have to plan their trip very carefully.
Right.
No, he's talking right turn to come out of the place.
I understand that.
You're going up to where, to turn around, to go back to the
I
highway?
guess you're going up, you're going right at Benson, then you're gonna go down to the other intersection and take a left on Randolph.
That could put additional pressure on Pleasant. If you got, if
That
people
would,
turn around on.
that would if it's used as a turnaround.
Maybe were we talking also about a right turn only into the site?
We could be, but as Alex does point out, that makes trips a little bit trickier.
Oh, both ways.
All the
Right
people,
turn out,
all the
right turn in.
employees are gonna have to go down to Helen Avenue, go up to Highland,
Not all the
And then-
employees, some of the employees may be coming from the other
and then come
direction.
down to Reed to the, well, that's exactly right.
Stop the light,
Then
take a
to the
left.
stoplight and take a left.
Push Quarry Lane through.
It's 8 in the
Some of the
morning.
employees are living on
8 in the
Ridgewood,
morning,
they
it's a
just have to-
one-way.
yeah,
How do you do
exactly.
it?
You wait until, when does it cease?
9 o'clock.
All right, Jason, you've got a few problems here, but we'll work with you.
Okay.
We should probably make sure that they have a copy of the draft of the language before the next meeting, so they're able to
We're
respond to it.
we're gonna hope for that.
Okay.
We're gonna hope for that, Jason, but, I don't think we're there yet.
Well, we have a,
Ernie brought up a great point. This access drive right here is currently active, that these residents use. Ultimately, how, let's say we have the access off this road.
Yeah.
And the bus stops, they stop down here.
Yeah.
You're gonna still have to walk down anyways, because the bus is not gonna go down the access
Okay.
road. So they're stopping here anyway, walking this way or walking that way. The people, the staff going in that direction. But this access road's gotta be here for these guys to still have access to this, and/or the residents in the back that have the rights through the right-of-way. And not only that, is the exposure's gonna be there, and it's gonna draw people there. Wouldn't we wanna rebuild the road safely to allow that interaction to occur, instead of masking it? All right, well, let's keep it a dumpy old road. You can see the beautiful building back there, and everybody's still gonna wanna drive through it anyways, because the access still has to maintain for the other residents in there. And I agree, it's a great point.
That is a
How
very-
architecturally do we drive them through a different access? Why don't we fix this one, make it 50 feet wide, add the radiuses, bring it down to 8%, do a good job with this, and highlight our building and highlight the project itself.
I don't believe there is a road there, President.
Yeah, there is, there's
That's
access
it.
to Horseplay.
Yep,
That's
the-
how
It's
you
a
get to
right of way.
Horseplay
Who
Stables
owns
right
it?
now.
There are individuals who have ownership and there's individuals who don't.
It's a private right-of-way, and right now, on the tax register, it's not being taxed to any individual. It's a right-of-way. These folks have rights to it. I believe these folks have rights to it. The folks back here have rights to it, and these two parcels have rights to
O'Neill.
it also.
Yeah,
And
the
the
town.
both, does the town have rights to it also?
And it is an active use, and
It
has
is.
been
It is.
for quite
That's,
some time.
that's
yeah.
how they get to their
This is
houses.
how they get to
Yeah.
their houses.
And that's how anybody gets to Horseplay Stables, if they're boarding their horses or riding lessons or whatever up there. That's why I think if you can show us what the current trip
Right,
generation,
there
that would be
is
very
traffic
helpful.
going out left
Exactly.
and right now.
Yep, it's just what the percentage difference might be
Sure.
on that,
And
so.
we're thinking that it's not a great difference, the percent difference.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have, if it can be designed properly and you can show that, I'm not sure I have a complete objection to you using this. I agree that the access road, because it's signalized, would make more sense, but that doesn't mean that I think that that's the only way to do it. I could be outvoted, but I'm willing to do that.
It's the question of what the zoning is going to provide, and if you just say 2 acres off of a state highway, you're,
I'm counting on you to come up with
well,
some
I
creative
can,
thoughts.
but the signalized intersection is integral.
It was a useful one.
Integral. Unless you guys can come up with some other specific characteristics of this site that are going to limit any sort of development to this specific site.
I'm sure
Well,
we
I'm sure we can brainstorm that.
I'm sure we can, and if
Well,
you-
but that's what the zoning has to say. The zoning has to say exactly what the characteristics of the site are to be, and if your site fits within those characteristics, it should be used. But it's not going to be just zoning your site, it's going to be zoning any site that meets these characteristics. And a signalized intersection limits the number of sites by however many fold you want to say, but significantly. So you're going to have to come up something like the signalized intersection that this site has that we can put into the zoning that's going to keep other people from doing the same thing.
Bordering on town-owned land?
What about a signalized intersection within 800 feet?
I don't think that would work.
Well, we'd have to look.
Well,
I
it
mean,
would-
I
no,
mean, that's the
but
point, is when we
limited.
do the zoning,
Well,
we
I'm
should say
all I'm
what are
saying, but
characteristics.
what is the
of that.
rationale for that?
You
To
wanted
say
a
within
limitation.
800 feet of a signalized intersection?
An
What is the
intersection-
rationale for that
It starts
zoning?
and
then?
stops
Why not
traffic.
1,000 feet?
It starts and stops traffic, so people are stopped on the road, and people can turn in without any traffic coming. So it does provide a safety factor if it is within a certain distance.
Well, all right. Come up with those additional characteristics that this site has that are unique to this site.
It used to be a old.
No.
On the side of a former
Yes, sir.
person.
I'm Eric Edmond, town meeting member from Precinct 1. Just looking at this one suggestion, if you must use this, because I live near Fuller Village, and yeah, there's no left turn in there for people to, and they're going to do it here. Regardless of what the traffic is, it's going to happen. Now, I mean, one suggestion, if you can have, instead of flashing signals here, if you want to have that done, that's on a sensor, so when somebody's coming out, it will trigger it. If you would look into something like that, if it can be done. I don't know
Yeah,
where you already have a signal down here.
It's a state highway, so that's controlled by the state.
Yeah, so I mean, that's another option for you, but to insist on using this, because you're gonna need to do a traffic study, because you don't know Route 28 traffic.
Correct.
During rush hour, at any time, they fly on you. So it would be in your best interest to use the traffic signal intersection and to try to use this for your marketing and whatever that, because it's going to be a safety issue. Someone's going to get hit trying to go in there. I'm going to tell you, something's good, it will happen.
I don't disagree, but if that were the case, someone would be getting hit now.
Randolph Avenue and Reedsdale, that intersection just up there is one of the biggest places for
But I mean
traffic accidents
specifically
in
coming out
Milton.
of the horse farm.
Well,
But we don't know when they're coming out compared to when the people going to your site are.
I mean, you don't want
If you can make the intersection safe, why not do it? If it's a dangerous street, that's, in any event, we will,
But I think
I'm waiting to see what the unique characteristics of this site are that you're going to tell me about, that we can put in the zoning to limit it. But
I do think it's important to keep in mind that that should be improved, regardless of whatever the primary access is.
Well, it may well be improved regardless of what the primary access is, and there's...
Well, especially as if the access road becomes the primary access,
Then-
that is now the secondary access.
That would be a
and it would be-
secondary
yes.
access, and it might be a fine secondary access, as opposed to a primary access.
But their point as to how do you keep the people from using the secondary access is a good one. It's
Well,
going to be the visual one from the street.
It will be whatever it is. Let's, but one of my concerns, I mean, the fact that this site has a right-of-way going through it makes it a very difficult site to work with, because you point out all these things, that there are houses that get to use this thing, and most developments, I mean, that's the site you have, but it's not a desirable characteristic, it's an undesirable characteristic.
We spent a lot of time working around it.
Well, relocating the right-of-way would be, in any event, you see these houses, it actually could be cut off just to serve the one house.
Yeah, except the people back here, the town of Milton and the O'Neills have access to this right away.
I understand, but if
So
they
if you
got,
cut it off
if they got
there.
access through here, it could easily, well, we'll see. In any event, I'm gonna write something up to, and I'm going to be talking about use of a signalized intersection, and if you can come up with some unique characteristics that will make that unnecessary, and yet eliminate all the other sites in town, I will be interested.
Okay.
It's abutting the town access road, I mean.
Abutting a state highway on the town access road.
And a golf course.
And near a golf course for the
Yeah, it's not
exact.
actually abutting the golf course.
It's not the greatest site in the world.
It's certainly a challenge.
Okay,
But we hope to make
I
it work.
think that, I don't think, anything else, board members?
Not at the moment. You'll be putting some design guidelines into your
So are we gonna see a draft of that language?
I hope so.
Prior to
I
the
mean,
next meeting, or-
I'm gonna do my best, but, bear in mind that, I'm not paid. I'm not paid anything. But I'm happy, I'm interested to do it, and I will do it, but,
Why don't they draw it up and then you can scrutinize it?
Well,
Let them-
because they've done it. They've done stuff before, and I'll look at the stuff you've done, and we'll
Go from
we'll
there.
see where we go. Okay.
Great.
Now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Walcott Road?
Walcott Road. What?
We still have Walcott Road.
All right.
Let the light shut off at 10 o'clock.
Are these different from
Sure,
what
they
you
should
did
just turn
yesterday?
it off.
No, because then we'd be stumbling our way out through the dark.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Paul Sullivan, I'm here representing the owner at 86 Walcott Street Road, and what we have here is a two-lot subdivision. The existing site contains 4.3 acres of land, and we'd like to subdivide a single lot off of Walcott, 44,000 square foot lot, and create a new private lane off Walcott, which would provide frontage for the new lot plus the existing land.
Where is the frontage for the existing land?
It's on the lane. It goes at a right angle. It's 150 feet across.
You're gonna have to construct it.
There's a 30-foot right-of-way.
Yeah, it has to be a 50-foot right-of-way to meet our spec, but I suppose that we could give you a waiver, but you're doing a right-hand turn here, right?
Yes.
So it's sort of like a separate street.
If you go to the plans that were in the yellow folder,
Yeah.
and then go to the second page, it may
You've got it nicely
pop at
highlighted.
you
What were these just gave us
I
is...
know. Go to the
Yeah,
one
but
I
this
gave you.
is highlighted.
on your plan.
Mine's not
The
highlighted.
one on your plan.
Okay.
Second page.
All right.
Second page is
Getting late.
highlighted. And third page is
It's getting
highlighted.
late.
Second and third.
All right,
agree.
pretty close.
Okay,
All right.
Here's your driveways.
yeah.
On the third page,
Here's the frontage.
Second and third.
The 30-foot easement is, of course, not frontage until it's constructed.
It's always
The easement, as you take your right turn, they'd have to construct that because you can't have frontage on a paper street. So they're going to have to come in and then take a right-hand turn. It's basically, you're going to have to create a separate street for that, the frontage on the other lot. And then you'll have to have a turnaround.
There'll be two new streets?
Two new streets, exactly, for one lot.
Does the lot contain 44,062 square feet after the street is constructed?
Well, I think that it's an easement, that they say the streets are part of the lot area, and it would be interesting to know how much space the streets take up. Do you know?
I believe about 7,000 square feet.
So it's a 37,
About 6,500 to 7,000.
It's 30 feet wide, by how long is the lot line there? It probably says it 162 plus 128 is 300, 900 square feet, and then 30 by
150.
150 is another 450, so it's about, I don't know, 1,400 square feet?
they say 7,000 square feet.
Maybe they're doing math wrong, it's 14,000.
Yeah, that might be, I just did that off.
Well, it looks like it's 7,000 square feet. In any event, we're going to have to figure out whether or not they can use the street area as part of the new lot bill.
Also, if they turn the corner and create that street
Yeah.
going up the way, are we ending it on the lot line and
It has to
people
end it
there?
so that
Okay.
the other people would presumably be able to use it.
If they agreed.
Well, if they wanted to.
No, it's.
Well, it'll be a private street at that
It's
point,
about
so
300 feet.
presumably they'd have to do some sort of access agreement.
Well, if it's a street.
It's about
But it's a
150.
private street, does that make a
understand, but
difference?
I don't think that we allow private streets to cut off access for a butters.
Well, in that case, they'd be able to use it.
It's about 30, so it was 14,000 square feet, so it was double 7,000.
It seems to me that's a pretty small lot after you finish doing your streets.
It becomes a 30,000 square foot lot if you take the street.
Actually, I counted that square twice, so.
So it's 7,000
square feet. No, it's more than 7,000.
And the existing
Paul, we should
building,
probably know how many square feet it actually
Sure.
is.
what you're going to have to do is, well, I don't know what you're
Maybe
going to do.
they could push the street into the second lot. So instead of heading it there, if they took it into the second lot.
Well,
then
except
they'd be-
because it's so close to the existing buildings.
Yeah, that's true too. Well, they could do a little curve.
Affects the setback.
And
Existing building.
I could be, you could curve it. You could curve it in front of the existing building to remain because it would be their driveway. It would be their street.
Right, it becomes one of those
And
nice
just curve it
driveways.
and take it up, and that would give this other lot the additional land. I think that's probably the way to do it, and it'd be nice. And we'll.
The only thing is, that
may
if the
have-
abutters use the street, they're gonna be driving right past that existing house.
Well, but they won't, because the street will end. It won't go right, it doesn't
Won't
need
go all the
to,
way-
it doesn't
you
need to go right to
property
the
line.
property line. It's
As long
just
as they
going to
have
end
that
in a T in the interior. And, you know, we've heard the discussion about 12 and 14 feet. And if you haven't, well, you're in for a great treat. The Friday night at 10, or Saturday night at 10, you get to watch us and
Or Sunday night at 10.
or Sunday night at 10 and discuss the lanes we were,
This is a 14-foot drive.
right, 14, and maybe as it goes past, when it takes its turn, it can go down to 12. Or maybe as it passes just like the other one, as it passes the driveway into the new lot, it can go down to 12.
So instead of having an L shape, go straight into the lot?
Well, no, it would go like this. And then
Still be L
right,
I think
right
you're
near
trying
the
to
pool.
get this
Right
leg of
near
the
the
L
pool.
into that one.
I thought the sound
Oh, I
effects
see
were
what
really
you're saying,
good.
yeah. Yeah.
This is
So you-
They
great,
say
Paul.
curve it so that you don't bring it up and point it there, so you just bring it into there.
Okay, anything else, Paul?
No, that should do it.
I will entertain a
So moved.
motion. All in favor? Okay, we are adjourned.